Chapter 39:16. Master? Impossible. Su Changfeng was shocked. The rest of the people's eyes flickered as they pondered. Zhao Yanqing stood up and paced with his hands behind his back. This is a good move. Zhong Qingli stroked his beard and said, "This is just my speculation. Whether it is true or not depends on the future. However, they must have great ambitions to be able to stand outside the Rui Temple for a day." Su Changfeng said, "Your Majesty, we must not let them join the Rui Temple." He was also intelligent and experienced. He had not thought of it before, but now that Zhong Qingli had pointed it out, he immediately understood. Once the three crown princes entered the Rui Temple, even if their status could not be compared to Princess Anfu, Grandmaster Dingru would definitely be wary of them. Moreover, the actions of the three indicated that they would pursue peaceful coexistence and would no longer start a war. This could also be considered a disguised form of surrender and taking them as hostages. In this way, Yu the Great's transcendence and dominance would be stopped. The plans of the emperor and the ministers would also be disrupted. It would be even more difficult to unify the world. Zhao Yanqing nodded solemnly. Zhong Qingli said, "Your Majesty, can you convince Master Dingru? What if he really wants to accept disciples?" Su Changfeng said in a deep voice, "After all, the Master is from Yu the Great." Zhong Qingli said, "In my opinion, Master Dingru has a grand wish to save all living beings. How can he only save one country and one city? Will the Master accept them?" Su Changfeng asked. Zhong Qingli nodded slowly with a solemn expression. He looked up at Zhao Yanqing. "Your Majesty, do you have a solution?" "Your Majesty, I will go to the Rui Temple." Su Changfeng cupped his fist. Zhao Yanqing waved his hand. "Forget it. Don't worry about it." "Your Majesty," Su Changfeng hurriedly said, "if Master Dingru really accepts them, it will be too late for regrets." Zhao Yanqing said, "I know. My dear ministers, you may leave." "Your Majesty," Su Changfeng said earnestly, "you have to plan ahead of time to prevent Master Dingru from agreeing." I know. Zhao Yanqing waved his hand. Zhong Qingli and the other old men slowly walked out of the palace. Su Changfeng was the last one to leave the imperial palace. When he walked out of the palace, he saw Zhong Qingli waiting for him at the entrance. "Elder Zhong." Su Changfeng cupped his fist. Although he was the head of the ministers, he was also promoted by Zhong Qingli, so he was very respectful. Zhong Qingli said, "Let's go." Su Changfeng and Zhong Qingli walked forward. Standing outside the gates of the imperial palace, one could see the Rui Temple. It was about 200 meters away, and there was no barrier in between. At that moment, there were three middle-aged men standing in front of the Rui Temple. Not far away stood a group of guards. They stood motionless, like statues under the setting sun. "Ai." Zhong Qingli let out a long sigh. Su Changfeng smiled and said, "Since when has our Yu the Great been so revered by others? We can hold our heads high." Shaking his head, Zhong Qingli sighed. "The strength of a single person is equivalent to the strength of several countries. It's a disaster, not a blessing." "Elder Zhong, are you worried that the great master will betray us?" Su Changfeng asked. Zhong Qingli said, "Since he has a sharp weapon, his killing intent will be aroused. Can this divine monk restrain his nature?" "Don't worry about that, old Zhong," Su Changfeng said. "The divine monk Dingru really has the world in his heart. He wants to quell the disputes of the world. From now on, there will be no more wars, and everything will be settled through negotiation." Zhong Qingli shook his head. "In this world, the strong prey on the weak. No one can avoid conflicts of interest. Even if the Buddha is reborn, he will not be able to eliminate this human nature. Unless he can suppress the world forever, the moment he loses his control, wars will resume." Su Changfeng nodded. Zhong Qingli said, "His lifespan will be longer, right?" Su Changfeng frowned. "The great master is so resourceful. he must have a longer lifespan. Zhong Qingli had a worried look on his face as he sighed again. As they spoke, the main gate of the Rui Temple suddenly opened with a squeak. Chu Li, dressed in a grey robe, walked out of the gate and came before 3 middle-aged men. These 3 men were the crown princes of Great Shuo, Great Kun, and Great Ning. Chu Li pressed his palms together and said slowly, 3 crown princes, I want to stop all wars in the world. If there are disputes between countries, they should be settled through negotiation. War is not allowed. Does Great Shuo, Great Kun, and Great Ning agree? Divine Monk, we agree. A handsome middle-aged man closed-fist saluted and said in a deep voice, Divine Monk, how can I let you down? Great Ning will abide by this rule. If there are any disputes, we will not start a war. Chu Li pressed his palms together. Thank you, Your Royal Highness. Another middle-aged man with a rough face said, Great Shuo agrees too. Great Kun agrees too. The last middle-aged man closed-fist saluted. However, Divine Monk, there is something I don't understand. If there is a dispute, how can it be resolved without violence? Chu Li said, Each country will send 1 person, including my disciple. The 5 of them will work together to resolve the dispute. The minority will obey the majority. If 3 people agree, it will be carried out. Divine Monk, you are wise. The 3 looked at each other and pressed their palms together. In this way, if the 3 countries work together, it would be enough to suppress you the Great. You the Great would not have to be the only one in power. Chu Li pressed his palms together. If that's the case, I thank all of you. I am very grateful. Divine Monk, you are too kind. The 3 of them pressed their palms together in return. Chu Li raised his voice. Where is Enfu? His voice was melodious and slowly spread out. It was condensed and did not dissipate. Princess Anfu, who was cultivating in the palace, heard it and shouted, Master! Her voice also slowly floated out and echoed in the sunset, resounding in everyone's ears. Then, everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. Princess Anfu was already standing in front of Rui Temple in a tight outfit. She closed-fist saluted. Master! Chu Li said, Anfu, I'm leaving. He glanced at Zhao Jinghe and his wife, who were rushing over and smiled. Both of you can often come to Rui Temple to cultivate from now on. Thank you, Master. Zhao Jinghe and his wife bowed. Princess Anfu was surprised. Master, where are we going? Chu Li pointed to the sky. The sunset filled the sky. There was only a sliver of the sun that could sink into the mountains at any time. The entire capital was bathed in the magnificent sunset. Princess Anfu said, Master, so soon? Chu Li said, I came with a wish and left with a wish. It's time to go. Master, why don't you stay for a few more days? Princess Anfu hurriedly said. I'm still far from it. Chu Li smiled. Although your cultivation is not perfect, it's enough for you to do things. You must not be complacent because of this. You must be more courageous and diligent. Don't forget to find the next successor. Don't cut off the inheritance of Rui Temple. Don't worry, Master. I understand. Princess Anfu nodded vigorously. At this moment, a golden gate suddenly appeared in the sky. It was extremely huge, as if it was several times bigger than the entire capital. It could completely envelop the capital. The golden gate seemed solid and the patterns on it could be seen clearly. The Emperor has arrived. Gu Yuanhe's voice rang out. Zhao Yanqing and Chang Shuhua strode over. The protectors around them had already consciously blocked the onlookers. Chu Li's feet were already floating in the air, and he was a foot above the ground. The light behind his head had become clearer and brighter, as if a bright moon was hanging behind his head, shining with clear light. Master! Zhao Yanqing hurriedly pressed his palms together. What are you doing? Chapter 39:17. Master, where are you going? He looked up at the approaching golden door with a solemn expression. Don't tell me you're going to ascend to the sky? Chu Li nodded slowly. Yes, my vow has been fulfilled, it's time to leave this world. I haven't listened to your wonderful teachings, why are you leaving in such a hurry? Zhao Yanqing said, I can't bear to leave. Chu Li said, Heaven and earth are impermanent, fate gathers and fates come and go. My fate with your majesty has not ended, An Fu will protect your majesty for me. As he spoke, he looked at Princess An Fu and sighed, Your majesty, please don't make things difficult for her. Master, don't worry, I'm not the kind of person who disregards my family, Zhao Yanqing said in a low voice. Chu Li smiled and nodded, Then I'll have to thank your majesty, An Fu. Master. Princess An Fu took a step forward, Are you really leaving? Chu Li looked up at the golden door and said slowly, I don't have much time left, I'll leave this Rui temple to you. As he spoke, his left index finger gently touched the center of her eyebrows. Suddenly, a ray of light flashed from her eyebrows and soared into the sky, turning into a white rainbow that formed a circular arc and landed on the Rui temple behind her. The Rui temple suddenly burst with splendor and golden light, forming a bowl-like golden cover that enveloped the Rui temple. The white rainbow that rushed out from her forehead and the golden light at first collided, but slowly, the golden light began to actively devour the white light. The golden light spread along the white rainbow and finally reached her forehead. The golden light that enveloped the Rui temple slowly dimmed and disappeared, as if it had completely drilled into her forehead. However, as it disappeared, it suddenly shone so bright that everyone's eyes could not see anything. Ba! Princess An Fu opened her eyes, golden light shot out from her eyes as if they were solid. She bowed with pressed palms and said solemnly, Master, don't worry, I'll protect the Rui temple. Chu Li smiled, If the Rui temple is destroyed, the Rui temple will no longer be passed down. This is the will of heaven, there's no need to go against it. Yes. Princess An Fu nodded slowly. At this moment, everyone's eyes returned to normal. They discovered that Princess An Fu's temperament had changed greatly. The original lightness had turned into a heaviness, as if she had become one with Rui temple. She was quiet and distant, heavy and peaceful. The golden gate in the sky finally began to open, its golden light illuminating the entire capital. Everyone in the capital couldn't help but raise their heads. Bathed in the golden light, their minds instantly calmed, and they inexplicably felt a sense of pity. The many worries of life seemed to vanish, leaving only peace and tranquility. His mind suddenly detached itself from the mortal world and freed itself from worries. Faint chanting poured out of the gate of heaven, and golden lotuses slowly drifted out. For a moment, the entire capital was occupied by the golden lotuses, and people couldn't help but stretch out their hands to catch them. Unfortunately, when it came into contact with his palm, the golden lotus transformed into a streak of golden light and entered his palm before disappearing. Everyone was greatly disappointed. They never expected that the golden lotus wouldn't last long and couldn't be caught. However, they soon discovered that the illness within their bodies had already disappeared. Their bodies were full of vitality, as if they had new bodies. Those with strong bodies didn't feel much, as if they were refreshed after a good night's sleep. The feeling of weak bodies was more obvious, but those with illnesses felt more intense, as if they had been reborn. The circular light behind Chu Li's head gradually expanded, from the size of his head to the size of his upper body, and then to the size of his entire body. His feet rose higher and higher off the ground, as if an invisible force was lifting him up. Ba! Chu Li put his palms together and sat cross-legged in the void. The Buddhist chant was like a morning bell, resounding in every corner of the capital, and reverberating in everyone's hearts. The golden lotuses that filled the sky immediately rushed below him. In the golden light, all the golden lotuses condensed, forming a lotus throne. He sat on the lotus throne and slowly floated up into the sky. The circular light behind him was like a bright moon hanging in the sky, reflecting his jade-like face and clear eyes. Everyone in the capital raised their heads to look, and the bustling capital was as quiet as ever. They could clearly see Chu Li's appearance, and they could even see every minute expression on his face. It was a strange feeling. He was clearly far away, but they could clearly see him, and they could never forget him. Chu Li was lifted up by the golden lotuses until he arrived at the golden door. The golden door slowly opened, and there was only a swaying golden light behind the door. Faint Sanskrit chanting could be heard, clear and distant. Chu Li stopped in front of the golden door and turned his head to look back. Everyone's eyes met his. Chu Li put his palms together again, and then floated into the golden door. The golden door slowly closed, and slowly disappeared into the void. After a long time, someone let out a long sigh, breaking the silence. Everyone held their necks, which had unknowingly become unbearably sore. "Is that divine monk Dingru? Divine monk Dingru, what a good one! What demonic monk? How can a demonic monk ascend? To ascend straight to the shore and transcend the world. This is the true supreme technique. Compliance Temple is the true sacred land of Buddhism. It's useless even if it's a sacred land of Buddhism. Divine monk Dingru has already ascended. Even if he didn't ascend, he wouldn't take in disciples. He only took in Princess Anfu as a disciple, and I think there's also King Jing and Princess Consort. This is truly a supreme opportunity. Sigh. We commoners don't have such an opportunity. It's better for us to live our lives honestly. I heard that divine monk Dingru suppressed all the generals in the world and dared not declare war again. Now that the divine monk has ascended, will he? This is really hard to say. At this point, everyone began to worry. It was better to be a dog in peace than a man in chaos. Even though they were far away from the border, if they really fought, the capital would also be affected. Zhao Yanqing withdrew his gaze and glanced at the other three princes thoughtfully. He suddenly became worried. The three princes had just agreed, and Master Dingru ascended. Times had changed, and Master Dingru could kill them like slaughtering chickens. But now, Master Dingru would not appear again. Everyone understood that Master Dingru had already ascended to the first heaven and would never return. Throughout history, no one had been able to return after ascending, so Master Dingru was no longer a threat. It was no different from moving a giant mountain. They must have heaved a sigh of relief and then become ecstatic. They felt that they could go back on their words and even wanted the three countries to join forces to destroy Yu the Great to vent their anger. He saw that the three princes had already come back to their senses and were looking at each other with burning eyes and irrepressible excitement. Zhao Yanqing's heart sank slightly. He knew that he was right. They would definitely go back on their words. He shifted his gaze and looked at Rui Temple. Under the moonlight, Rui Temple was like a giant sleeping beast, silent and motionless, blending into the night. It was hard to imagine what would happen to Rui Temple without divine monk Dingru. Even with Yu the Great's protection, it might not be able to withstand the attacks of Great Shuo, Great Kuan, and Great Ning. "Father," Princess Anfu said softly, "I can't return to the palace. From today onwards, I will live in Rui Temple." "How can that be?" Chang Shuhua hurriedly said. "Anfu, you're the only one left in Rui Temple. How can we be at ease?" Princess Anfu chuckled. Her clear eyes swept across everyone present, and she said with a smile, "From today onwards, I am the master of Rui Temple. Rui Temple is my residence, and Anfu Palace will occasionally return to stay there." Chapter 39:18. Sai Yu. Zhao Yanqing shook his head. Chang Shuhua wanted to persuade him again, but Zhao Yanqing gently pulled her back. Chang Shuhua said helplessly, "All right, you're the temple master, but you can't always refuse to see Imperial Mother and Imperial Father." "Mother, don't worry. I can go back to see you at any time. It's not that far away." Princess Anfu gently nodded. Her gaze shifted to the three crown princes and she said with a smile, Your Highnesses, are you thinking about whether or not to renege on your previous promise? Our great Shua's words carry enormous weight. We absolutely won't go back on our word. Great Shua's crown prince, Yu Chenglong, said solemnly. Princess Anfu lightly nodded. The 3 crown princes think that this little girl doesn't have my master's cultivation, so it's not a big deal, right? After saying that, she shook her head and said, in order to not kill people like my master, I can only intimidate you guys first. Princess, please don't misunderstand. Yu Chenglong waved his hand and said, we have no intention of going back on our word. Also, I believe this Dakuan has no intention of going back on his word either, right? As he spoke, he smiled at the crown prince of Dakuan. The great Kuan crown prince, Meng Guangyao, was a boorish-looking middle-aged man. Speaking of which, he had to thank Princess Anfu. After defeating the 18th prince, Meng Guangzhao, the great Kuan crown prince, Meng Guangyao, was quickly appointed. If Meng Guangzhao had not suffered a great loss at the hands of Princess Anfu and lost Great Kuan's face, as well as displayed his impetuous and rash personality, Great Kuan's emperor would not have made the decision to appoint Meng Guangyao as crown prince. Therefore, if Meng Guangyao wanted to accept Princess Anfu's favor, he would probably still be on good terms with Yu the Great. Only De Ning and De Shuo would oppose Yu the Great. Now that things had become awkward, if he did not make such a straightforward promise, he would probably be in trouble. Yu Chenglong had already investigated Chu Li. It could be said that he was very resourceful and was comparable to a celestial being. His ascension this time also proved how powerful he was. Since ancient times, only 2 or 3 people had ascended. He had personally witnessed the ascension, and the shock he felt towards him could not be erased. His reverence towards the Rui temple also deepened. He did not believe that Chu Li did not have any trump cards. Therefore, this Princess Anfu would definitely be able to suppress the 3 kingdoms. Jumping out now was no different from inviting humiliation. Thinking of this, he completely calmed down and decided to soften first. The good thing was that although Princess Anfu's martial arts were peerless, her mind was pure. She might still have a chance, far surpassing Monk Dingru. Meng Guangyao cupped his fists and said, "Don't worry, Your Highness. There's no reason for me to go back on my words. Dakuan will definitely not start a war. Everything will be discussed and will not use the army." "Very good." Princess Anfu revealed a smile. "This way, I don't have to kill anyone. It couldn't be better. I'll send you guys back first. The real ones to discuss the matter are still the emperors of the various countries." As she spoke, she took a step to Meng Guangyao's side and placed her jade-like hands on his shoulders. Then, the 2 of them instantly disappeared. The surrounding people looked around but couldn't find their shadows. The next moment, Princess Anfu appeared in the same place again. She stepped in front of the Crown Prince of Danning, put her hand on his shoulder, and disappeared with him. Then, she reappeared in the next moment. "Wait a moment," Yu Chenglong hurriedly said. Princess Anfu's jade-like hand had already landed on his shoulder. It seemed slow, but it was actually very fast. Even if he wanted to dodge, it would be too late. "I'm sending you back. Don't worry, I won't kill you." Princess Anfu blinked her big bright eyes. Yu Chenglong hurriedly said, "Your Highness, this little prince still has something to say." Princess Anfu smiled and said, "No need to say more. If you have anything to say it later. I'm going to close the temple now, so I don't have time to talk. Let's go." After she finished speaking, she disappeared in a flash, and Yu Chenglong also disappeared. The next moment, he found himself in a different environment. The surroundings were very familiar, so he couldn't help but look around. Then, he frowned and turned to look at Princess Anfu. "This is the Imperial Garden?" He finally recognized that this was the Imperial Garden of the Great Shuo Imperial Palace. At this moment, the Imperial Garden was very quiet. It was dinner time, so all the palace maids and imperial concubines were eating dinner in their own halls. They wouldn't come here to stroll. After dinner, they would come out for a stroll to digest the food. Princess Anfu said, "This is your imperial garden. You can go back by yourself. I won't send you back to your imperial residence." "This," Yu Chenglong said, "Your Highness, you're still giving us a show of strength." Princess Anfu snorted and said, "It's good that you understand. I hope I don't have to personally kill people. Let's see if you force me or not. If you obediently abide by the rules, I won't meddle in the affairs of the country. If you don't abide by the rules, then I can only do it on behalf of my master. Your Highness, don't worry. Our words carry enormous weight. We won't go back on our words." Yu Chenglong said in a deep voice. "That's good." Princess Anfu chuckled and said, "Then I'll take my leave. Eat your dinner." She waved her lily-white hand and suddenly disappeared. Yu Chenglong's face was gloomy and his eyes flickered. "Your Highness!" A palace maid suddenly cried out in surprise. "Yes, where's Imperial Father?" Yu Chenglong said. He's eating at Concubine He's place," the palace maid said in a low voice. Yu Chenglong waved his hand and strode toward Concubine He's palace. His face became even gloomier, and his heart sank. No wonder Monk Ding Ru killed people like it was child's play. Unknowingly, it was because of this magical power, the Buddhists' divine feat. They could go anywhere they wanted with just a thought. To them, the imperial palace was even simpler than their own garden. Everyone's life was in their hands. Kill or not, it all depended on their mood. They couldn't resist. This feeling was truly painful and humiliating, but it was unimaginable. Princess Anfu appeared in Yu the Diu's imperial garden. Zhao Yanqing and Chang Shuhua were already waiting for her. "How is it?" Zhao Yanqing asked. Princess Anfu smiled and said, "I've sent them back to the imperial garden. This time, they will be well-behaved. They won't despair and won't be well-behaved if they don't see their true abilities." Zhao Yanqing said, "They won't be well-behaved so easily. You'll have to put in more effort in the future." Princess Anfu snorted and said, "They're courting death if they're not well-behaved. Before Master left, he already taught me a secret technique. It's as easy as flipping my hand to take care of them. It's useless even if I have treasures. Don't worry, Imperial Father. But, Imperial Father, don't play any trick. If Yu the Diu's army dares to make a move, I'll make a move too." "Look at her," Zhao Yanqing said to Chang Shuhua impatiently. Chang Shuhua shook her head. "You don't recognize your parents anymore after becoming a disciple of Master. Anfu, you're making me sad." "Mother," Princess Anfu scoffed and said, "Anyway, I've promised Master and made an oath. I can't go against it. The Ru-Yi Temple is detached and independent." "All right, we'll do as you say." Zhao Yanqing scoffed and said, "It's time for dinner." "I'll return to the temple after dinner," Princess Anfu said. After Chu Li floated through the golden door, his eyes were suddenly filled with golden light. He could not see anything clearly. His great circle mystical mirror had lost its effect. He could not sense anything except for the golden light that filled the sky. When he regained his senses, he realized that he had actually appeared in a golden pool. The golden pool water gently swayed as if it was molten gold swaying. The pool water carried him straight up to the surface. He was even sitting on a lotus seat that floated above the pool water. This place was actually a huge lotus pond. It was 100 meters in length and width. Although it was not considered big, it gave people a feeling of vastness. The snow-white lotus flowers swayed gently. It was shockingly beautiful. Chapter 39:19. The water of the golden pool supported the snow-white lotus seat. Traces of a strange force entered the lotus seat and then entered his body through it. Chu Li felt that his body was undergoing a strange change at an incredible speed. He felt the strange changes in his body while looking around. There were two people in the huge golden pool. One was a handsome middle-aged monk who was meditating on the lotus with his eyes closed. His body was emitting a faint golden light, the same color as the golden pool, as if he was absorbing the energy of the golden pool. The last one was a beautiful nun with a face that could outshine the moon and put flowers to shame. She was not inferior to Chu Li's 3 women. Her temperament was as delicate as the snow-white lotus beneath her. There was also a faint golden light circulating around her body as she absorbed the energy of the golden pool. Chu Li was sitting on the lotus seat, which was formed by densely packed snow-white lotuses. It was about the size of a bed, while the lotus the woman and the handsome middle-aged man were sitting on was the size of a cattail hassock, just enough to support them. The great circle mystical mirror continued to expand outwards, looking around. The golden pool was located in a valley. The valley was covered in mist, like a fairyland. The situation outside the valley could not be seen clearly, but the inside of the valley was full of flowers, lush trees, and overflowing green. 6 strange round wheels flew around the valley, drawing strange arcs. Chu Li stared at the round wheels. They were shaped like lotuses, snow-white and flawless, as if they were made of ice, but they were light and graceful. The round wheels had saw-teeth, forming a cold light as they rotated. Anything that came into contact with them would be cut in half. In the middle of the round wheels was a lifelike lotus. When the round wheels rotated, it was as if a lotus was blooming. It was beautiful and moving, but when one saw the saw-teeth with a cold light, one would feel fearful. Chu Li frowned. He did not realize that these 6 round wheels were being controlled. It was as if they were rotating on their own, which was quite strange. The aura continuously drilled into his internal organs, purifying his body. He could clearly feel that he was becoming lighter. It was not an illusion, it was real. His body was indeed becoming lighter. With a thought, the lotus seat lifted him up gently. In this short period of time, he felt that the gravity was gradually weakening. It was as if he was in outer space, without gravity, he was no longer bound. As the strange power purified his body became lighter and lighter, and the gravity became less and less. Finally, it disappeared without a trace. With a thought, the lotus seat carried him higher and higher. He was able to overlook the valley as he drilled into the clouds. Then, an invisible force suddenly surged over, covering the sky and covering the earth as it pressed down on him. He did not resist it forcefully. Instead, he followed the force and fell into the golden pool once again. At this moment, 2 handsome young monks suddenly appeared in the void, each of them standing on a lotus flower. They smiled and pressed their palms together. Amit Ba. Chu Li got up from his lotus seat and pressed his palms together. Amit Ba. Congratulations, junior brother. The 2 handsome young monks spoke almost at the same time. They put their palms together and said, "This poor monk is Jing Kong, Jing Li." Chu Li pressed his palms together and smiled. "I am Dingru." The 2 handsome youths shook their heads. Jing Kong said, "Junior brother, you came from the lower realms, right?" Chu Li nodded. Monk Jing Kong said, "You reincarnated from the golden pool, so you are a disciple of our lotus flower sect. As a new disciple, I will bestow upon you the Dharma name Jingru." Chu Li forced a smile. Jingru? The Jing generation is the newest generation. Jing Kong nodded and said, "Entering the golden pool from the lower realms is also your good luck. You have enough merit so you can reincarnate in the golden pool and be reborn. Otherwise, you would have turned into dust the moment you stepped into this world." Chu Li looked at the other 2. Jing Li said, "Junior brother Jingru, these 2 are the same as you. They ascended from the lower realms and also have a lot of merit and fortune. That's why they can enter the golden pool and become disciples of our lotus flower sect." Chu Li said, "Senior brother Jingli, everyone who ascends will come to the golden pool? Haha, how can there be such a wonderful thing?" Jingli shook his head and said, "Only those who have a lot of merit and fortune will enter the golden pool and be reborn. Those who don't have enough merit and fortune will directly come into contact with this world." they will be immediately crushed by the world and reincarnated. However, to be able to directly reincarnate as a person of this world, it's considered good luck. Chu Li looked thoughtful. Then, will there be people who enter other places? There will. Jing Li said, some enter the golden pool, some enter the fortune pool, and some enter the nine nether abyss. In any case, it depends on each person's merit and fortune. The three of you are lucky enough. Our Lotus Flower sect is the most gentle, unlike Fortune Gate and Nine Nether Cult, where the weak are prey to the strong. Jing Kong said, Junior brother Jingru, once you step into the golden pool, you will be a Lotus Flower sect's direct disciple. The golden pool's aura cannot be erased no matter what. Once you step into the golden pool, you will forever be a Lotus Flower sect disciple. Chu Li slowly nodded. Originally, he thought he could be free, but now it seemed he had directly become a Lotus Flower sect disciple. Jing Kong and Jing Li's minds were protected by treasures. Rays of light circulated, blocking him from prying. The two's bodies were like two clouds of mist, and their bodies were free from gravity. He looked down at himself and inwardly shook his head. He didn't bring anything up and his body was empty. If he wanted to see this world, he could only go through the Lotus Flower sect. He also didn't know whether the Lotus Flower sect was evil or righteous. He didn't act blindly without thinking. If he acted rashly in a situation where he didn't know the ins and outs of the situation, the outcome would not be good. Moreover, looking at the two's cultivation, they far surpassed the current him. He could only plan slowly and settle down first. Amit Ba. Jing Li put his palms together and smiled at the beautiful nun who was slowly opening her eyes. Junior sister, this is the Lotus Flower sect's golden pool. From today onwards, Junior sister will be our Lotus Flower sect's direct disciple. I will bestow upon you the Dharma name Jing Shui. The beautiful nun frowned and said indifferently, I'm not a monk. I just cultivate a Buddhist mental cultivation method. You weren't a monk in the past, but you are now, Junior Sister Jing Shui. Jing Li smiled and said, Congratulations, Junior Sister Jing Shui. Your merit and fortune are deep, and you can enter the golden pool to reincarnate. You don't have to reincarnate from the beginning, go through the mysteries of the womb, and wash away all the memories of your previous life. I'm a disciple of the Heavenly Wonder sect, not a Lotus Flower sect disciple. The beautiful nun said. Jing Li smiled and said, The Heavenly Wonder sect is just a lower world. There is no Heavenly Wonder sect in this world. Also, entering the golden pool is a person who reincarnate. Your past life will be written off, so don't be attached to the lower world. Jing Kong also opened his mouth. He put his palms together and smiled at the middle-aged man who had opened his eyes. Amit Ba. Congratulations, junior brother. I will bestow upon you the Dharma name Jingzhen. I hope junior brother can establish merit and go straight to the other side. The middle-aged man Jingzhen put his palms together and bowed. Thank you, senior brother. Jing Li said, Junior sister Jing Shui, the three of you reincarnated into the golden pool at the same time, so it can be considered fate. You can take care of each other in the sect. Although the Lotus Flower sect is peaceful and is a Buddhist Pure Land, the world is not peaceful. Demons run amok, so you need to support each other in order to establish merit and virtue. Jing Kong said, There are lotus wheels in the valley. We Lotus Flower sect disciples each have our own lotus wheels. Junior brother and junior sister can go and collect them. It's up to your own fate and luck. The lotus wheels contain the Lotus Flower sect's mental cultivation method and cultivation experience. It is also the Lotus Flower sect's seal of inheritance. Jing Kong said, Let's go. After he said that, the two of them floated towards the valley. Chapter 39:20. With a thought, Chu Li's lotus seat lifted him up and followed closely behind Jing Kong and Jing Li. He glanced at the two beside him. Jing Shui frowned, but in the end, she bit her red lip. The lotus beneath her also lifted her and followed. Jingzhen, the middle-aged monk, looked calm as he followed closely behind. As Chu Li was sizing up the two, they were sizing him up as well. They had been distracted by Jing Kong and Jing Li earlier and neglected Chu Li. Now, they were sizing him up carefully. Chu Li also observed his appearance. The water of the golden pool had the effect of being reborn. His appearance was no different, but his temperament changed slightly. The weathered and solemn look on his face was washed away. He suddenly looked much younger, like a young man who had just come out into the world. This was because his lotus seat was larger and could absorb more power. Jing Shui and Jingzhen might not have changed so much. They were dragons among men since they could ascend. Chu Li did not look down on them. Instead, he valued them greatly. In the future, they might hug each other for warmth and support. Jing Kong and Jing Li moved faster and faster. The three behind them followed closely. They passed the golden pool and reached the depths of the valley. Do you see those lotus wheels? Monk Jing Kong pointed at the 6 flying wheels that were flying around in strange arcs in the sky and said with a smile, "Every disciple of our Lotus Flower School has a lotus wheel. You guys should also take one. They are all spiritual objects. Whichever one you catch is your fortune and fortune. Go." Chu Li asked, "Senior brother Jing Kong, are there any differences between these lotus wheels?" "Of course there are differences." Jing Kong nodded. "Just like martial arts, there are differences. Some lotus wheels are faster and made of better materials. Some are slower and made of inferior materials. It's just like how there are good and bad people." Jing Li said, "Everyone can take the lotus wheels based on their own ability. Don't worry, these lotus wheels will not harm your life. They will only hide. Feel free to grab them as much as you want." Chu Li nodded slowly. Jing Shui scoffed. The lotus carried her away lightly. In the blink of an eye, she arrived at the spot where the lotus wheels passed. She was ready to wait for them to pass by and catch one. However, these lotus wheels seemed to be spiritual and avoided her. Jingzhen slowly floated to Jing Shui's side. When Chu Li saw this, he floated to Jing Shui's other side. The three of them lined up in a straight line, forming a barrier that stretched across the valley. If these lotus wheels wanted to bypass them, they could only do so from above or below. It was impossible to bypass them from the left or right. Jing Kong and Jing Li looked at each other and smiled. Jing Kong said, "Let me remind all of you that joining forces won't work. The aura of each of you will be sensed by the lotus wheel. If the three of you join forces, your aura will be even denser, and they will hide even further. If you want to capture them, you have to conceal your aura and act alone." Chu Li remained motionless as though he had been frozen in the void. Jing Shui and Jingzhen were the same. They turned a deaf ear to their warnings and merely closed their eyes as though they were dozing off. They ignored the flywheel that had burrowed down and up. "These three little fellows won't hit a wall," Jing Kong said with a shake of his head. Jing Li said, "We can't underestimate him. After all, he came up from below and isn't a reincarnation of one of us." Monk Jing Kong said, "The ones coming from below are even worse." Jing Li smiled and said, "Those who can come up here are all powerful people. As long as they experience some setbacks, they will grow rapidly and become powerful figures of our lotus flower sect." "Let's hope so." Jing Kong scoffed. Swoosh. Chu Li's figure disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared in front of a lotus wheel and reached out to grab it. The lotus wheel spun quickly. All 5 of his fingers flew out. Only his palm was stuck to the lotus wheel, preventing it from breaking free. Blood gushed out like a fountain and instantly sprayed onto the lotus wheel. Chu Li stared at the lotus wheel without a change in expression. He did not care about the 5 fingers that flew out as though they were not his fingers. Jing Shui and Jingzhen's expressions changed slightly. They turned to stare at Jing Kong and Jing Li. "Didn't you say it wouldn't harm our lives?" Jing Shui scoffed. Jing Kong and Jing Li also stared at Chu Li with wide eyes. They could not believe that he could catch the lotus wheel in an instant. Furthermore, he was so brave that he did not care about his fingers being cut off and sent flying. Chu Li closed his eyes slightly and remained motionless. The lotus wheel shot out a golden light that shot between his eyebrows. Like a drop of water falling into snow, it silently drilled in and disappeared. A moment later, a golden light faintly appeared around Chu Li. It was indistinct like the mist on a lake in the morning. Good! Jing Kong exclaimed and turned to look at Jing Li. Jing Li smiled and said, "How is it? I told you that those who can ascend here are not ordinary people, right? To be able to grasp the lotus secret technique so quickly, your comprehension is indeed outstanding." Jing Kong nodded and said, "We can't underestimate you." Jing Shui and Jing Zhen retracted their gazes and stared at the other 5 lotus wheels. However, Jing Shui and Jing Zhen suddenly flashed and each grabbed a lotus wheel. The lotus wheels spun at high speed and were about to cut off their fingers like before. As they dodged, one of their fingers was still cut off by the lotus wheels. They could not avoid it. The power of these lotus wheels was beyond imagination. After 2 lotus wheels were restrained, a golden light shot between their eyebrows. Then, the 2 of them quickly flashed with golden light, just like Chu Li. Jing Kong and Jing Li looked at each other in surprise. "Junior brother Jing Kong, our lotus sect is in luck. These 3 junior brothers are all powerful people," Jing Li exclaimed. Jing Kong nodded slowly. To be able to comprehend the lotus secret technique so quickly, it was definitely not an ordinary comprehension. It was far better than the reincarnated disciples of the same sect. After they reincarnated into the golden pool, they had to recultivate the lotus secret technique. Even if they cultivated it once or several times and reincarnated to cultivate it again, they would not be able to grasp it so quickly. Chu Li slowly opened his eyes and looked down at the lotus wheel in his hand. The lotus wheel let out a soft hum and suddenly shot out. It spun around his body, sometimes high and sometimes low, sometimes fast and sometimes slow, changing unpredictably. In the end, its speed became faster and faster until it could no longer be seen clearly. Only a stream of light streaked past. The stream of light suddenly disappeared and went far away from him. A moment later, when the lotus wheel appeared again, there were already 5 fingers in the middle of the wheel. The parts that were cut off were neat and smooth. It was his 5 fingers that had been brought back by the lotus wheel. Chu Li extended his left hand and the lotus wheel flew over and stopped in front of his hand. He picked them up one by one and pressed them on his palm. He slowly connected the 5 fingers to his palm one by one, then turned his head and said, "Senior brother Jing Kong and Jing Li, I want to go to the golden pool." "Go!" Jing Kong nodded. The water of golden light can indeed regrow severed limbs. Reconnecting your fingers is as easy as flipping my hand. "Thank you, senior brothers." Chu Li fist saluted. The lotus seat carried him and disappeared into the distance like a wisp of smoke. The remaining 2 also woke up, picked up their fingers and flew to the golden pool. Jing Kong and Jing Li smiled as they watched them reconnect their fingers. The golden light of the golden pool lingered on their fingers and they quickly recovered to their original state. The effect was miraculous. "All right, we should return to the sect," Jing Kong said. "We've delayed long enough." Chapter 39-21. Chu Li and the other 2 nodded. Jing Kong and Jing Li walked out in front until they reached the entrance of the valley and arrived in front of the fog. Suddenly, 2 lotus wheels flew out from the top of their heads and streaked forward. Immediately, the fog dissipated. "Follow them," Monk Jing Kong said in a deep voice. Jing Li turned his head and said, "The lotus wheels are used to break the seal in the valley. You guys can also break the seal now, but it will consume your cultivation. What you need now is cultivation. You still have to fight later." The 5 of them flew out of the valley and immediately realized that they were outside a mountain. There were huge peaks on both sides. At the foot of these huge peaks, they were as small and insignificant as ants. "Be careful," Monk Jing Kong said in a deep voice. The lotus flowers around Jing Li rotated endlessly, forming a light screen. Chu Li and the other two imitated him. The lotus wheels turned into streams of light. The 5 of them were supported by the lotus flowers as they flew slowly like white clouds. However, their speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they had flown more than 10 kilometers and gradually flew out of the range of the huge peak. They arrived at a lush grassland. The grassland stretched as far as the eye could see. Even his omniscient mystical void mirror couldn't see it. The thick green grass was like a pond. Ding! Suddenly, there was a clear ring as the lotus wheel beside Jing Kong revealed itself. Following that, a shadow appeared and kept pouncing at Jing Kong. However, the lotus wheel kept spinning and blocking the shadow. No matter how fast it was, it couldn't break through the lotus wheel's obstruction. Chu Li frowned. The omniscient mystical void mirror had already seen the shadow clearly. It was a human figure, but its figure was too fast. Furthermore, its body was strange. It was as though it was in a half-hidden state and had merged with the surrounding void. From this, he could see the profoundness of the lotus wheel. It was really as easy as moving an arm. With a single thought, the lotus wheel would appear without any obstruction. Ding 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 ding. The clear ring sounded incessantly as the lotus wheel and the indistinct shadow clashed. Chu Li's heart suddenly trembled as he hurriedly used his mind. Ding! A figure appeared in front of the lotus wheel. He activated the lotus wheel and blocked the figure's storm-like attacks, preventing it from taking a step closer. The other 3 also faced off against a faintly discernible figure. Jing Kong said solemnly, "Be careful of their dirty tricks. They might use hidden weapons or even poison." As soon as he finished speaking, "TSS, TSS, TSS." Amidst the whistling sound, a mist shrouded Chu Li. Chu Li's lotus throne flashed, and in the next moment, he appeared 10 feet and a half away from the mist. The others were also shrouded in mist. Their methods seemed to be synchronized. The other 4 were not touched by the mist and easily escaped. "Be careful!" Jing Kong shouted. In the blink of an eye, there were 3 people surrounding each of them. Ding 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 ding. Amidst the concentrated ringing sounds, Chu Li's body moved erratically, sometimes in front and sometimes behind. The lotus wheel separated from him, as if each of them was fighting its own enemy. Chu Li's palms had already shot out multiple lotuses. These lotuses were made of light and shadows, but they seemed to have substance as they collided with the figures that were rushing over. The lotus wheel blocked one figure, while he used the lotus divine palm to block 2. TSS. Suddenly, there was a sharp whistle. The lotus wheel suddenly shot out a blood-red light, drawing a long blood-red arc as it flew back to Chu Li's side. Then, a figure appeared in the void. It was a young man who looked similar to Chu Li and the others. His facial features were similar to a human's, and he was extremely handsome. However, there was an extra eye on his forehead. It was a vertical eye that was tightly shut. It was bigger than an ordinary eye and looked more dignified. The lotus wheel had cut off one of his arms, so blood shot out like an arrow, revealing his figure. Seeing this appearance, Chu Li frowned. Monk Jing Kong shouted, "Junior brother Jingru, be careful of his vertical eye." As soon as he finished speaking, the man's vertical eye suddenly opened and shot out a golden light. Chu Li's figure suddenly swayed, and the golden light missed and landed on Jing Shue's back. Jing Shue paused, and her body stiffened as she fell straight down. In the next moment, Chu Li appeared beside her. The lotus wheel blocked one of them, and a lotus appeared in each of his palms to block the other 2. The lotus seat supported Jing Shue, and she moved with him, drifting erratically. TSS. Chu Li's lotus wheel suddenly swept past the one-armed man's neck. The man's head flew up, and at the same time, his body spewed out an arrow of blood. "Good," Jing Li praised. Junior brother Jingru. He never expected Chu Li to be so precise, steady, and ruthless. He could actually kill a god. Go! Suddenly, there was a long shout. More than 10 figures suddenly hid in the void. The body that was spewing blood and the flying head also disappeared and hid in the void. Jing Kong and Jing Li heaved a long sigh of relief. Jing Shui left Chu Li. The lotus seat under her feet continued to support her, but her expression was unusually ugly. Chu Li pressed his palms together. Junior sister Jing Shui, I'm sorry. Jing Shui's beautiful face tensed up. She snorted and shook her head without saying a word. She couldn't say this. Although she was implicated by Chu Li, she could only blame herself for not being on guard. Moreover, it was fortunate that he had helped her in time. Otherwise, she would have lost her life. Senior brother Jing Kong, who are they? Jing Zhen asked in a low voice. Jing Kong said, the deities claim to be the masters of this world. All races have to listen to them. We humans aren't convinced, so we fell into battle with them. Unfortunately, we've always been at a disadvantage. We can't beat them? Jing Zhen frowned. Jing Kong shook his head. This time, it should be the younger generation who came out to gain experience. They treat killing us like hunting animals and beasts. Only by killing us can they be considered adult. Let's go. We'll talk as we go, Jing Kong said. The 5 of them slowly walked forward. Jing Kong said, don't think that they're so weak just because they killed a fellow from the deity race. This time, they've just come of age. Their divine eyes can only shoot out a concentrated beam. The truly powerful ones can shoot out dozens or even hundreds of beams. If you encounter one, you'll be frozen in place and be slaughtered. Chu Li couldn't help but think of the treasures he had back then. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to bring them. Is there no way to break them? Jing Zhen said in a low voice. Jing Kong said slowly, no, we can only dodge. Then we'll have to trouble you, Jing Zhen said. Fortunately, we killed one of them, Jing Shui said indifferently. Jing Kong shook his head. They have immortal bodies and can't be harmed. We can only cripple their cultivation and cultivate again after a long period of time. Huh! Jing Shui frowned. Jing Kong sighed. They can still come back to life even if their heads are cut off. But our lotus flower sect isn't bad either. We have the golden pond. Even if we die, we can reincarnate and cultivate anew, continuing to be disciples of our lotus flower sect. Jing Li said in a low voice, don't be discouraged. The deity race is powerful, but their numbers are too few. The key is to be careful of all kinds of monsters. They're all under their control and will attack us crazily. With that, he pointed at a group of black eagles charging over. This group of black eagles shot over like arrows. Chu Li could clearly see their sharp claws and beaks flashing with cold light. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 39:22. Ding 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 ding. The lotus wheel spun and blocked the black light. Behind the black light were black eagles that collided with the lotus wheel. Bang 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 bang. The dull sounds were like stones hitting wood. Chu Li's group of 5's lotus wheels floated and slashed at the black eagles from time to time. The lotus wheel easily cut through their bodies and cut them in half like a knife cutting tofu. Jing Kong said, don't ever lose the lotus wheel. The lotus wheel is forged from rare metals and contains spirituality. It can be said to be our lotus sect's most precious item. Everyone has one wheel. Once the lotus wheel is taken away, it will be difficult to keep your life. The lotus wheel will be taken away? Jing Zhen said in a low voice. This wheel was connected to the mind and could change as one wished. Even if it was taken away by others, they could escape. After all, it was incomparably sharp and nothing could restrain it unless it was a spiritual attack. The lotus wheel contained a strange power that could block spiritual attack. In this way, it was almost impossible for the lotus wheel to be taken away. Jing Kong said, there's always a mountain beyond the mountain. We have to be careful. They can't take away the lotus wheel and may think of a way to trap it. They can only rely on the divine lotus palm. Although the divine lotus palm is amazing, it is far from the sharpness of the lotus wheel. The difference in power is too great. As they spoke, the black eagle flew away again and disappeared into the horizon. Seeing that Chu Li wanted to chase, Monk Jingli said, "Forget it, junior brother Jingru, there's no need to chase. We can't catch up." Monk Jing Kong shook his head and said, "These feathered beasts are very cunning. If they can't hit, they will flee. It's a waste of energy to chase." Chu Li stopped and sighed in his heart. They were so passive. It seemed that they had suffered a lot from the black eagles. Moreover, they could only be attacked and could not be pursued. It was clear that these black eagles were savage and showed the weakness of the lotus sect. Jing Kong's group of 5 continued to float forward at an extremely fast speed. They did not encounter any more attacks along the way. Then, they flew higher and higher until they finally arrived at a huge mountain floating in the air. The mountain floated in the air but was stable and motionless as if it was tied by a rope. They floated towards the mountain peak, and the closer they got, the more they felt its vastness. They were like tiny ants at the foot of the mountain, insignificant. Moreover, the vast aura rushed towards them, making it hard for them to breathe. Chu Li had already noticed the strangeness and uniqueness of this world. It was as if the gravity in this world was very weak. One could jump with just a little bit of strength, and it was exceptionally easy to perform the light body technique. Even if he didn't circulate his energy, he felt as light as a feather and wanted to fly. It was not difficult for a mountain to float, and there were even floating mountains in the lower realms. When it got close, it was suddenly blocked by a golden light screen. Jing Kong and Jing Zhen's lotus wheels danced and entered the light screen. Immediately, a circular hole appeared. "Let's go in." Jing Kong called out and led the 4 into the light screen. Jing Zhen said, "This is our lotus flower sect's mountain gate. Only people who have cultivated the lotus flower secret technique can enter. Others can't enter even if they want to. Our lotus flower sect's disciples can't bring people in. This is also to prevent people from sneaking in," Jing Kong said. Chu Li nodded. The 5 of them landed on a spacious and flat plaza. Behind the plaza was a basilica. It was as if a ferocious beast was crouching and looking down at them. Sigh. Jing Kong let out a long sigh and smiled. "Our mission is over now that we're here. The 3 of you have excellent aptitude. We're lucky that none of you died. Goodbye." After he finished speaking, he pressed his palms together with Jing Li and fluttered away. Chu Li and the other 2 pressed their palms together and watched them flutter away. Supported by the lotus flowers, they entered a small path at the side and disappeared into the lush forest without a trace. Chu Li slightly closed his eyes and did not move. The great circle mystical void mirror was observing the surroundings and enveloped the entire mountain. He could clearly see how many palaces and courtyards there were on this mountain. He could clearly see the monks and nuns in the courtyards, but he could not clearly see the situation inside the palaces. There was an invisible force protecting them, blocking his observation. At a glance, he realized that the entire Lotus Flower sect had a total of 3,200 disciples. There were 2,010 men, and the rest were nuns. The number of nuns was far higher than he imagined. Moreover, looking at the cultivation of these nuns, they were even higher than the monk. Chu Li immediately understood that this secret lotus technique was definitely more beneficial for women to cultivate. Men would not be able to cultivate so quickly, and it was obvious by looking at Jing Shui's cultivation. The golden pool did not give them cultivation but only strengthened their physique. Their inner energy cultivation was cultivated through the secret technique on the lotus wheel, so it was extremely fast. Moreover, the lotus wheel also attached some cultivation to it and poured it into their bodies. Moreover, with the lotus wheel, inner energy surged over endlessly through the lotus wheel. There was no need to worry about a lack of it, and they could use it to their heart's content. His physique was stronger, so his inner energy was more profound. However, in terms of purity, Jing Shui was better than him. It was just that Jing Shui's combat experience was inferior to his. A middle-aged nun suddenly appeared in the basilica. A lotus flower under her feet supported her and brought her in front of the three. This nun was beautiful, gentle, and amiable. She came close to the three, pressed her palms together, and smiled sweetly. "I am Su Xian. You can call me Masters Jr." The three of them pressed their palms together and bowed. Su Xian smiled sweetly. The Lotus Flower Sect is one of the 5 major sects in Tiannan. It is a great opportunity for you to enter the Lotus Flower Sect. I hope you cherish this opportunity, cultivate well, and work hard to subdue demons and build immeasurable merit. Jing Shui said, "Masters Junior Su Xian, are we official disciples of the Lotus Flower Sect?" "Yes." Su Xian nodded lightly. "You guys reincarnated from the Golden Pool and obtained the Lotus Wheel to inherit the secret Lotus technique. You are official disciples of the Lotus Flower Sect. There are countless people who want to become disciples of the Lotus Flower Sect but can't, but it's easy for you guys. Don't not cherish it." Jing Shui smiled sweetly. "Don't worry, Masters Junior Su Xian. We know how powerful the secret Lotus technique is." "That's good." Su Xian smiled. "Follow me." Supported by the lotus under her feet, she gracefully floated forward. She followed the small path on the side and entered a forest. Then, she passed through the forest and walked all the way up the mountain. Finally, she arrived halfway up the mountain and stopped in front of a small courtyard. This small courtyard was beside the forest. Some of it was hidden by the forest, but it was not to the extent of blocking the sunlight. It was quiet and peaceful. Chu Li had been secretly sizing up Su Xian. Her cultivation level was faintly discernible. It looked like she didn't know martial arts, but the lotus under her feet showed that she had a cultivation level. It was just that it was hard to detect. The lotus under Su Xian's feet was different from the other threes. The pure snow lotus had 9 petals. Jingzhen had 8 petals. Chu Li's had several lotuses clustered together. It was hard to tell how many petals there were. Su Xian's lotus had a total of 27 petals. There were 3 layers, and each layer had 9 petals. Jing Kong and Jing Li's lotus both had 9 petals. It was the same as Jing Shui's, but it was fuller. "These are your courtyards. You can choose anyone." Su Xian pointed at the small courtyards on the opposite side. "The 3 of you came together, and you all ascended from the lower realm. You can be neighbors and look out for each other." Jingzhen said in a low voice, "Masters Junior Su Xian, I'm used to being alone." Chapter 39-23. Usually, when one came to an unfamiliar place, they would think of huddling together for warmth. It was inevitable that they would overlook things if they were alone. They would rarely refuse help and stay alone. Such people were either very confident or had a huge secret that they did not want others to find out. However, Jingzhen did not seem to be confident, unlike Jing Shui, who had excellent aptitude. Jingzhen's aptitude was inferior to Chu Li's. Among the 3, Jing Shui had the best aptitude, followed by him and Jingzhen. Chu Li said, "I'll pick first." He pointed at the innermost courtyard. "That one." "That one." Jing Shui pointed at the one next to it. Su Xian looked at Jingzhen with a smile. Jingzhen pointed at the farthest one. "I'll pick this one." "Very good." Su Xian nodded. "The 3 rooms you chose are all unoccupied. You have a good eye." She was also looking at the 3's intuition and senses. Although they were far apart, those with keen intuition could already tell which courtyards were occupied and which were empty. If they could not, it meant that their intuition was slow and they had to be careful. The most important thing in a fight was one's cultivation level, followed by intuition and experience. If one's intuition was not accurate, One's reaction would be weaker, and they would not be able to defeat the strong. One had to be steady and not take risk. Jing Shui asked, Masters Junior Su Xian, what are we going to do next? You'll consume a golden lotus, Su Xian said. This is a generous treatment for new official disciples. It can save you 100 years of cultivation. The three of them looked at her in silence. Su Xian said, After you consume the golden lotus, you'll follow the team to fight and accumulate merit. And then? Jing Shui asked. Su Xian smiled sweetly. Once you have enough merit, you can consume another golden lotus to increase your cultivation level. Masters Junior Su Xian, are we going to keep fighting? Jing Shui frowned. Su Xian said, If you don't want to be enslaved by the deity race and become their slave, you can only do your best to resist. If one day you can eliminate the deity race or expel them from this side of the world, then there will be peace. At that time, if you want to cultivate, you can cultivate. If you don't want to cultivate, then don't cultivate. Jing Shui frowned. The enlightened deity clan is powerful? We humans struggle bitterly while the deity clan oppresses the world. Su Xian lightly nodded and said, But fortunately, our Lotus Flower sect has the gold pool. Even if we die in battle, we can reincarnate from the gold pool. Then we're also undying and indestructible? Jing Shui asked. We're no different from the deity clan. Why can't we defeat them? They are born with divine might, and their vertical pupils can freeze people's souls. Su Xian shook her head and said, Up until now we still haven't found a way to restrain them, so once we fight with them, being able to escape is already a fluke. And Jinqi's reincarnation will wash away his past life's memories and cultivation. If we want to recover our past life's memories, we must cultivate to the 9th layer of the secret lotus method. Lotus flower mystic technique 9th heaven? Jing Shui asked, Is it very difficult? Difficult? Su Xian lightly shook her head and said, The lotus secret technique is easy to cultivate but hard to master. The further you go, the more difficult it becomes. You need the assistance of the golden lotus. One golden lotus can increase your cultivation by 100 years. If you want to reach 9th heaven, you need at least 100 golden lotuses, and you also need enough comprehension. In short, there are only a mere 9 people in our Lotus Flower sect who have reached 9th heaven. Jingshu lightly nodded and said, So in order to recover your past life's memories, everyone desperately cultivates and accumulates merit in order to obtain the golden lotus? Exactly. Su Xian sighed and said, You guys have just reincarnated, and your cultivation is shallow. After you consume a golden lotus in a while, you'll have the power to fight and obtain the golden lotus from there. How much merit to exchange for a golden lotus? Jingshu asked. Su Xian said, Nobody knows. It depends on your own fate. As long as you have enough merit, a golden lotus will naturally condense on top of the golden lotus of merit. Each of you can plant a golden lotus of merit in your own courtyard. Are we going to plant our own golden lotus of merit? Jingzhen said in a deep voice. Su Xian lightly nodded and said with a smile, Do you guys think we're exchanging merit from the sect? If our Lotus Flower sect really had so many golden lotuses, we would have long since beaten the deity race into fleeing. So that's how it is. Jingzhen slowly nodded. Su Xian said, All right, let's go to your courtyard. Supported by the lotus, she gracefully moved forward and arrived at Chu Li's small courtyard. After pushing the door open, she saw a small pond in the center of the courtyard. There was a slender and elegant lotus bud in the pond. There was also an antique gazebo beside the lotus pond. There was a square table in the gazebo with a zither on it and a few plates of snack. It was exquisite and tempting. They were all people with sharp senses and could smell the faint fragrance. Their saliva involuntarily increased. This golden lotus of merit is yours. Junior nephew Jingru used the secret lotus technique to stimulate it. When you feel it coming to life, throw it into the pond. Su Xian fished out a small purple box from her sleeve. It seemed to be a purple jade with a faint flowing light. After opening it, there were 3 dazzling golden seeds the size of a fingernail. Su Xian picked one up and passed it to Chu Li. Chu Li received it with both hands. "Thank you, junior uncle." Su Xian smiled and said, "This kind of lotus also pays attention to intuition. Heat control is the most important, so you have to stop when the sun first moves. If you stop your inner energy too late or too early, it will prolong the growth of the golden lotus of merit." Chu Li nodded lightly and placed it on his palm. Then, he activated his inner energy according to the secret lotus technique and continuously injected it into the seed. The small seed was like a black hole that continuously devoured inner energy. Chu Li felt that his inner energy was almost completely devoured. Only when 2 more waves of inner energy surged from the lotus wheel did something strange happen. His senses were sharp. Once he noticed the abnormality, he immediately stopped and threw it into the pond. Bang! It was like a boulder falling into the lotus pond. However, there was only a small ripple, as if a small stone had fallen into the pond. Everyone stared at the pond. After a while, the budding lotus flowers suddenly bloomed. The pond was filled with lotus flowers and a faint fragrance filled the air. "Good!" Su Xian clapped and praised. "The heat control is the most suitable. Junior nephew Jingru, you have a good comprehension." She was full of smiles and looked delicate and alluring. Chu Li smiled and said, "Which one is the golden lotus of merit?" He did not find the golden lotus of merit. "All of them are and none of them are," Su Xian said. "The golden lotus of merit is invisible and traceless. It lives on the lotus. As long as there is enough merit, one of the lotus flowers will naturally bear a golden lotus." Chu Li nodded in realization. In that case, he would not be able to destroy the golden lotus of merit. Jingxue said, "Come to my place. Let's go." Su Xian smiled. "If there's anything you're not used to living here, you can tell the attendants. There's no need to be restrained." "Yes." Chu Li nodded. "Come with us. Let's take a look at their golden lotus of merit." Su Xian said, "Junior nephews Jingxue and Jingzhen might not be as lucky, but there's no need to rush. They might only be a few days late." Chu Li followed them to Jingshue's courtyard. Jingxue picked up a lotus seed and focused on channeling it for a while before throwing it into the pond. Bang! After a dull sound, the lotus flowers in the pond bloomed. It was not inferior to Chu Li's. However, when it came to Jingzhen's place, it only bloomed after 2 hours. Chapter 39-24. Jingzhen was hiding his true strength on purpose. Although Chu Li could not see through him, he could feel the fluctuation of his emotions. When the fire reached the initial phase, he deliberately hesitated for a moment before pulling back and tossing out the golden lotus. With that, the fire was too old, and the speed of the golden merit lotus germination was greatly slowed. Chu Li became more wary of Jingzhen. He hid himself everywhere and had a huge secret. It was hard to tell if he was a friend or foe. Although they entered the same sect at the same time and were somewhat related, it was hard to predict his character. Su Xian grinned. Su Xian smiled and said, "It has already bloomed. 10 days from now, it should condense into a golden lotus. When you consume it, it will increase your cultivation by 100 years. During these 10 days, you can focus on cultivating. How much the golden lotus can increase your cultivation is related to your own cultivation. The key is the purity of your cultivation. The purer your cultivation is, the better the effect of the golden lotus." Chu Li and the other 2 nodded. Su Xian said, "The golden lotus can increase your cultivation level, but purity is crucial in a real battle. The more refined the lotus, the more powerful it is. This requires a purer energy." "Yes." The 3 nodded. "Right, you're all powerful figures in the lower realm. Su Xian suddenly stopped before leaving and said softly, "But the martial arts in the lower realm can't compare to the secret lotus technique. It's best not to waste time." Jing Shui said, "Masters Junior Su Xian, I cultivate the Empyrean Fairy Heart Sutra." Chu Li's heart skipped a beat. He was very familiar with the Empyrean Fairy Heart Sutra. It was the heart technique that Lu Yurong cultivated before. It was shockingly powerful but had no further progress, so she changed to other antique studies. He did not expect to meet a cultivator of the Empyrean Fairy Heart Sutra here. If it's the Empyrean Fairy Heart Sutra, you can cultivate it at the same time. Su Xian was surprised. No wonder you're so talented. It's the Empyrean Fairy Heart Sutra that matches our secret lotus technique. Jing Shui revealed a smile. Su Xian glanced at Chu Li and Jingzhen without saying a word. Chu Li said, "I'm cultivating the Dragon Elephant Wisdom." The Dragon Elephant Wisdom. Su Xian pondered and shook her head. "I've heard of this technique. It's a Buddhist protective divine technique. Unfortunately, it focuses on physical strength, which is useless for the secret lotus technique. It's better not to cultivate it." Chu Li said, "And the demon suppression seal." As soon as he finished speaking, a small silver seal suddenly condensed in the sky. It was real and not illusory, but it emitted a vast might. Su Xian said, "It still won't work. Your demon subduing seal is not weak, but it is still much weaker than the lotus wheel. The lotus wheel is a rare metal of heaven and earth. Only it can counter Zhu Xie and the heavenly deity race." Chu Li sighed. "Then we'll just have to let it go. You all have already practiced the lotus flower secret technique, so you should know its intricacies. Don't waste time because you are reluctant to part with the old technique," Su Xian said. Chu Li nodded slowly. His Madra technique was exquisite and powerful, but it was indeed not suitable for this world. Compared to the lotus wheel, it wasn't lacking in subtlety, but its power was lacking by a bit. It wasn't as powerful as the invincible blade. He had already decided to give up on other techniques and focus on cultivating the lotus secret technique. The lotus secret method was indeed exquisite beyond compare. Even with his comprehension ability, he couldn't comprehend it in a short time. He needed to slowly comprehend it layer by layer. Jingzhen said in a deep voice, "I cultivate the Godfiend Sutra." "That won't do." Su Xian shook her head and said, "Let's practice the lotus secret technique." Jingzhen nodded. "Alright, go about your own business. Once you've condensed a golden lotus and swallowed it, you can follow the team to kill and obtain merit." With that, Su Xian was lifted by the lotus and left. Chu Li and Jingxue pressed their palms together and left. Jingzhen didn't urge them to stay. The two of them walked slowly while being carried by the lotus. Jingxue asked, "Are you an eminent monk?" Chu Li smiled and nodded. "I'm quite famous and respected. Unfortunately, everything is for naught here. I have to start from scratch." "Junior sister Jingxue, is it the same?" "I'm not a monk. I only cultivate the Buddhism secret technique," Jingxue said. Chu Li said, "The Empyrean Fairy Sutra isn't a Buddhism secret technique, is it?" He felt that it was a Taoist secret technique, and it wasn't a Buddhism secret technique. Jingxue shook her head gently. "The Empyrean Fairy Sutra is unique. Moreover, there isn't a Taoist sect in my world. It's already been destroyed by the Buddhists." Chu Li asked, "Junior sister, what sects are there in your world?" He wanted to know if that world had anything to do with the one he was in. He even wanted to know if they were the same world. He realized that he was far from understanding the mysteries of this world. Jingxue listed more than 10 sects in one go, but Chu Li had never heard of any of them. They were all the most inaccurate worlds. He would only be able to find them if he could cultivate to the point where he could freely travel between worlds. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, he was diligently cultivating the Lotus Secret technique. As he channeled the Lotus Secret technique, His spirit, the lotus wheel, and the lotus seat merged into one. The lotus wheel and lotus seat formed a strange world that absorbed the vitality of heaven and earth. He bathed in the vitality of heaven and earth. The inner energy that entered his body was the inner energy of the lotus secret technique. When he channeled this inner energy, the lotus wheel and lotus seat were like his arms. He did not have to think too much. They would move as soon as he willed it. It was very strange, even more so than the heavenly knife technique he had cultivated before. Of course, the heavenly knife technique also helped him understand the lotus secret technique, so he learned it faster. When the first ray of sunlight shone into the courtyard in the morning, the lotuses in the lotus pond suddenly shone brightly. The golden light flickered as if they had turned into golden lotuses. Chu Li immediately understood that the golden lotuses were about to condense. The golden lotuses slowly floated up and suddenly shrunk in the air. Suddenly, a golden lotus seed appeared. It shot toward Chu Li. Chu Li reached out and took it. He was secretly channeling the lotus secret technique, so he did not take it. Instead, it fell into his hand on its own. It was indeed strange, so he threw it into his mouth without hesitation. It melted as soon as it entered his mouth. Its fragrance lingered and lingered. Chapter 39:25. With a thought, a stone on the ground flew up and spun around his body. It was much more agile than when he was on the next level. With another thought, the lotus wheel flew out of the void. Woo! The lotus wheel made a strange whistling sound. As it danced, the sound became softer and softer until it was completely silent. Chu Li smiled. This meant that he had entered the second level of the lotus secret technique. The lotus wheel was silent and qualified for a sneak attack. Otherwise, the first level's lotus wheel would be too powerful. It would only be wide open and not subtle enough. The lotus seat under his feet gradually changed. All the small lotuses began to shrink and turned into 18 petals. They changed from the size of a bed to the size of a cattail hassock. They were no different from the others. Chu Li did not feel disappointed. Instead, he smiled. The second level of the lotus secret technique was much more mysterious. It could hide his abnormality and become one with the light. His lotus seat was bigger and faster than ordinary people. This was due to his strong foundation. However, no matter how strong his foundation was, when he was at the last level, being too conspicuous was suicidal. The great circle mystical mirror observed the abnormality in the courtyard next to him. Jingshue's golden lotus of merit had condensed into a lotus seed. She swallowed it and 18 petals appeared under her feet. Jingzhen's golden lotus of merit had not condensed yet. He was silently observing the abnormality in his body and experiencing the mystery of the second level of the lotus secret technique. In the sound of fluttering clothes, Su Xian was carried by the lotus. Chu Li pressed his palms together. Masters Junior Su Xian. Su Xian waved her hand lightly. Junior Jingru, no need to be so polite. The Lotus sect does not care about customs. Chu Li nodded. Su Xian said, "You've swallowed the golden lotus and achieved the second level of the secret technique?" Chu Li nodded. Su Xian smiled sweetly. "You're really talented. Very good. Then, you and Junior Jingxue will join the expedition team. Follow me." Chu Li followed her to Jingshue's courtyard. Su Xian brought Jingxue along. The three of them were carried by the lotus and arrived in front of a basilica. It was the basilica that Chu Li and the others saw earlier. This time, they entered the basilica. There were already 10 young monks in the main hall. All of them had shiny bald heads, handsome appearances, handsome temperaments, and they were outstanding and outstanding. "Jinghuan, this is Jingru and Jingxue. I'll leave them to you." Su Xian smiled at a tall and handsome young monk at the front. "Don't go too far this time. Martial Aunt Su Xian, don't worry. This time we're going for stability. We won't advance rashly." The tall and handsome young monk, Jing Huan, said with a smile. However, whether or not they can return safely will depend on their own abilities. Of course. Su Xian gently nodded and turned to Chu Li and Jing Shui. Jing Huan and the others entered the sect early and have experienced numerous battles. However, they won't be able to fend for themselves once they run into monsters or the enlightened deity clansmen. You can't rely on them. Everything depends on yourselves. Understood. Jingshuan nodded gently. All right, go. Su Xian said, try to return within 10 days. Let's go. Jinghuan waved his hand without hesitation, and the lotus flower beneath his feet lifted him out. The other 9 monks followed closely behind. Chu Li and Jingxue followed behind and quickly floated out of the lotus flower sect. Once they were out of the lotus flower sect, their floating speed suddenly increased. They were as fast as lightning, and the scenery around them flashed by. Chu Li felt as though he was sitting in a high-speed car. Jing Huan floated to Chu Li and Jing Shue's side and said with a beaming smile, Junior brother Jingru, junior sister Jingxue, are you from the lower realm? Chu Li and Jing Shui nodded. Jing Huan smiled and said, what's your world like? Chu Li thought for a moment and said, that world is flourishing with Buddhism, but their martial arts are meager. They can't circulate their inner energy, and the only way to ascend is through merit. With enough merit, they can ascend to the next level. I came here through merit. Meager martial arts. Jing Huan sighed ruefully. Can't use inner energy. It's hard to imagine, but that kind of world must be excellent. Chu Li shook his head. Although there's no inner energy, there are still battles, and the battles are endless. That's true. People are like that. Jing Huan nodded. It's a good thing that you can come here with merit. What we value the most here is still merit. As long as there's enough merit, your cultivation will be strong. He turned to look at Jing Shui. Jing Shui said, my world is also established with Buddhism, but their martial arts are also strong. I relied on my martial arts to enter this world. That's still impressive, Jing Huan praised. This place also talks about martial arts. Strong martial arts means strong merit, and strong merit also means strong martial arts. Junior sister Jingxue, you have a great future. Work hard. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Senior brother Jing Huan was really interesting. However, although they were senior brothers, they had cultivated to the second level of the Lotus Secret technique. They were not much stronger than Chu Li and Jing Shui, and they might have more combat experience. Be careful! Jing Shui suddenly shouted. Ding! There was a clear ring, and a figure appeared in the void. Following that, a lotus wheel flew out. Blood immediately gushed out from the corner of Jing Shui's mouth, and her face suddenly turned pale. The lotus wheel shot at Jing Shui. Chu Li had a bad feeling. Ding! His lotus wheel appeared and blocked Jing Shui's lotus wheel. Pfft! Jing Shui spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body slid down limply, but Chu Li caught her. The 2 lotus wheels were hidden in the void. Ding, 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 ding. Amidst a series of concentrated rings, a figure punched out. With each punch and wheel, he sent all the flying lotus wheels flying. He was invincible and unstoppable. Chu Li had already clearly seen the person's appearance. It was a dignified middle-aged man. His vertical pupils were tightly shut, and his eyes flashed with white light. His pupils could not be seen clearly, but there was only a blinding white light that surpassed the sunlight. It was so bright that no one dared to look at him directly. His body technique was too fast, and his fist force was strange. He could directly suppress the lotus wheel with a punch and send it flying with a single punch, causing the owner of the lotus wheel to be injured from the backlash. As a result, his speed was greatly reduced. Chu Li pulled Jing Shui up and fluttered back as fast as he could. After the lotus seat was fully activated, a string of their shadows appeared in the void. The handsome middle-aged man ignored them and took a step to Jing Huan's side. Jing Huan shouted, "Run!" With that, a golden light shot out from his forehead into the lotus wheel in front of him. Hum! The lotus wheel also shot out golden light and shot at the handsome middle-aged man. A sneer appeared on the handsome middle-aged man's cold face. The vertical pupil on his forehead suddenly opened, and golden light shot out to meet the lotus wheel. The lotus wheel suddenly paused, and the golden light swayed. Bang! The golden light suddenly scattered, and the lotus wheel disappeared. Jing Huan fell limply to the ground. The handsome middle-aged man was already behind him in the next step, and his fist smashed down on his head. Chu Li appeared in front of Jing Huan in the next moment, and pulled him up and disappeared. Huh! The handsome middle-aged man was surprised. The vertical pupil on his forehead opened again, and rays of golden light shot at Chu Li. Chu Li appeared next to Jing Shui in the next moment and pulled her up, disappearing with Jing Huan in an instant. The golden light fell into the void and spread out. His expression suddenly darkened, and his handsome face seemed to be frozen. In the next moment, he took a step behind a fleeing Lotus Sect disciple. The vertical pupil flashed with golden light, and the Lotus Sect disciple froze, allowing his fist to smash his head. Then it was another Lotus Sect disciple. In the blink of an eye, the fleeing Lotus Sect disciples all died under his fist, and their 9 heads were smashed like watermelons. Chapter 39-26. Suddenly, the figures of Chu Li and the other 2 appeared in the void. The figures of the 3 of them were indistinct. No matter how one looked at them, they could not be seen clearly. It was as if one was standing at the edge of a lake, and looking at the situation at the bottom of the clear lake. One could see the swaying of the water plants, but one could not really see the position of the water plant. Chu Li and the other 2 had already appeared inside the Lotus Sect. With the sect protecting power of the Lotus Flower School isolating him, his vertical pupil was unable to see through, nor was it able to focus. Chu Li stood outside the Lotus Flower Sect's hall, his entire body tense. Jingxue was the same. Only Jingxue did not sense anything, her expression heavy. Chu Li glanced back thoughtfully. Jingxue did the same. Both of their expressions were ugly. "Who is this?" asked Jingxue. Chu Li said, "That person just now." "Senior brother Jinghuan can see this?" Jinghuan sighed. "We were lucky to be able to escape this time. That guy should be a constellation realm heavenly deity. We're dead for sure. His vertical pupils can cross the void and attack us directly. If it weren't for our junior brothers, we wouldn't have been able to escape even if we wanted to. No matter how fast our movement techniques are, it would be useless." Su Xian was carried out by the lotus. She glanced at the 3 of them and said softly, "You died so quickly? Martial uncle, we're out of luck. We ran into a constellation-level celestial the moment we came out, and we didn't even have the strength to fight back." Jinghuan shook his head solemnly. "Junior brother Jingru's movement technique is impressive. He escaped with me and junior sister Jingxue." Su Xian frowned slightly. "He's actually a constellation-level heavenly deity?" She looked at Chu Li and Jing Shui and said, "There are 4 levels of enlightened masters: Starlight, Star, Constellation, and Galaxy. Your levels are still too low, so it's difficult for the higher-level enlightened masters to fight against you. You're really unlucky this time." Jing Huan said, "Uncle Master, I'll personally make a trip to the Golden Pool and bring the junior brothers back." "That's fine too." Su Xian nodded. "It's already hard enough that you were able to escape." "Junior brother Jingru's movement technique is superb," said Jinghuan. He was not too concerned about Chu Li's divine power. No matter how powerful his light body technique was, he would not be able to escape from a constellation-level enlightened master like Chu Li just now. This time, he was really just lucky to have survived. Su Xian looked at Chu Li. Chu Li replied, "I possess the Buddha's limbs." No wonder. Su Xian suddenly understood. She had always been curious that Chu Li's lotus seat was different from the others. Now, she understood that it was because he possessed the god's limbs. She continued, however, Jingru, the divine feat is indeed profound, but you can't rely on it when encountering the deity race. Their vertical pupils are known as the divine eyes and can pierce through the void. No matter how fast the divine feet is, it can't be faster than the divine eyes. Once your divine soul is locked in place, you won't be able to move and can only obediently wait for death. Chu Li asked, Masters Jr., can the god's eye kill people directly? It depends on the level. At the constellation level, it can directly scatter a person's soul. Su Xian nodded. Chu Li's expression was solemn. How could the heavenly god clan be a match for them? Just a single glance was enough to make one's soul scatter. Of course, if your cultivation is high enough, you'll be able to block it. Su Xian said. A heavenly deity of the first level of the star constellation realm would need at least the 7th layer of the Lotus secret technique to be able to escape unscathed. You guys have indeed managed to escape with your lives this time. Congratulations! Chu Li smiled bitterly. Jinghuan said, Junior brother Jingru, junior sister Jingxue, let's head to the golden pool. Chu Li and Jingxue hesitated. Su Xian smiled and said, Don't worry. The heavenly deity clan are all proud and arrogant. Since they couldn't kill you this time, they won't continue to pursue you. You guys are temporarily safe, but only for 10 days. Chu Li secretly let out a sigh of relief. Jingxue said, Masters Jr., when can we cultivate to the 7th layer? That depends on your luck and strength. Su Xian smiled and said, If it's fast, it'll take 8 to 10 years. If it's slow, it'll take 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 years. Many who cultivate to the 6th layer can only reincarnate and start anew when they encounter the constellation deity. This is just bad luck. There's nothing we can do about it. Jingxue frowned and nodded lightly. The three of them left the Lotus sect and headed for the golden pool. Jinghuan said, Junior brothers and sisters, this kind of thing can't be rushed. I've already reincarnated and cultivated for the 12th time. Unfortunately, I've never been able to cultivate to the 9th layer and recover my past life's memories. 12 times. Jingxue was surprised. Jinghuan said, Among them, there were 6 times when I cultivated to the 8th layer. Unfortunately, my luck wasn't good. I always missed the final step and perished again. Jingxue shook her head. It really makes one despair. Jinghuan grinned and said, It'll be fine once you get used to it. Actually, our Lotus sect is located in the southernmost part of Tianan, at the forefront of the divine deity race's expansion. If we go north, it's still a peaceful land. People live very comfortably and don't even know that the divine deity race has arrived. Chu Li said, Then our Lotus sect's disciples can also go north. If you don't want to keep on killing, you can go north to recuperate and ease the exhaustion of your mind. Cultivating your heart to perfection will also aid in the improvement of the Lotus secret technique. Jinghuan shook her head and said, If you blindly cultivate and kill, it will be very difficult to improve the Lotus secret technique in the future. Chu Li looked pensive. Jingxue said, The Lotus sect's disciples have a choice? Of course. Jinghuan nodded and said with a smile, Many disciples go to the north to travel once they reincarnate and live a peaceful life. When they get tired of the peaceful life, they return to the sect to fight. In any case, there's the golden pool. Even if we die, it's just reincarnation. Then why do we have to fight directly? Jingxue frowned. Jinghuan shook her head. After all, you aren't the original disciples of our Lotus sect. You ascended from the lower realm. Jingxue scoffed. Looks like if we want to escape from the killing, we have to die once. Jinghuan smiled and said, That's not necessarily the case. We should be able to be free once we cultivate to the 5th level. We can choose not to fight. The 5th level. Jingxue shook her head. She now recognized the dangers of the outside world. The 5th level was not that easy to reach. This time, they had a brush with death, and it was just a hair's breadth away. Thinking of this, she glanced at Chuli. Chuli was calm and unperturbed as he looked around. "Be careful!" Jingxue suddenly shouted. Chuli grabbed Jingxue with his left hand and Jing Huan with his right, instantly disappearing on the spot. Swoosh! An air-piercing sound swept past their original position. A small golden insect crawled out from the ground. It was only the size of a thumb and looked like a ladybug. Once again, it turned into a golden light and shot toward Chuli. Ding! A lotus wheel appeared out of thin air and blocked the path. The small insect collided with the golden lotus like a bell chime. Swoosh! The lotus wheel suddenly spun and slashed the small insect away. The small insect was split into two. The golden light flashed and disappeared into its body. It was already dead. Jinghuan revealed a smile. This is an earthly gold insect. Its body can be used to cultivate swordsmanship. It's very expensive. The lotus wheel carried the 2 halves of the insect and brought it near them. At this moment, the 2 petals had already turned golden. The golden color had a hint of warm luster like topaz. What a good thing! Jinghuan praised. Junior brother, your luck is indeed not bad. These small insects are very cunning. They will only attack when they see someone weaker than them. If they miss their attack, they will flee. Even if you want to chase them, you won't be able to catch up. Chuli had obviously concealed his aura and made the earthly gold insect think that it had found its prey. Moreover, he could still conceal his aura when he attacked and did not scare the earthly gold insect away. This method was indeed impressive. Chapter 39:27. Yes. Jing Huan nodded. If you're bitten, you'll lose your life. It looks small, but many of our fellow disciples have died under their mouths, so we mustn't be careless. Tianan is like this. You must be careful around. A blade of grass or a tiny bug can take your life. Chuli put away the 2 halves of the bug. It was warm to the touch yet cold. Ice and fire seemed to have fused into one. It was like ice yet not ice, fire yet not fire. It was indeed mysterious. No wonder it was a precious material for practicing swordsmanship. The journey was smooth. When they arrived at the golden pool, they saw 9 lotuses floating on the surface of the pool. 9 young men were sitting on the lotuses. They were the 9 monks who were killed back then. Chu Li's omniscient mystical void mirror scanned through their bodies. Although their bodies were indistinct like shadows and seemed unreal, the omniscient mystical void mirror could see that they had returned to normal. Their broken heads were still intact, as if they had never been broken. He couldn't help but sigh at the mysteriousness of this golden pool. It was only slightly inferior to his withering tree. Jing Huan saw the 9 monks and sighed in relief. Senior brother Jing Huan, will there be an accident? Chuli asked. Jing Huan said, who knows? There will always be accidents. If we're caught, it'll be dangerous. We won't be able to live or die. It'll be troublesome if they slowly convert us. He smiled. We're lucky to meet a constellation master this time. We'll all die. Jing Shue's expression changed slightly. As a woman, she didn't know what kind of torture awaited her if she was really captured by the Divine Deity clan. But don't worry, everyone from the Divine Deity clan is proud and arrogant. Those they capture are usually 9th-level masters. They don't care about small characters like us. Jing Huan comforted. Jing Shui forced a smile and didn't feel comforted at all. She couldn't keep improving and never step into the 9th level. With her aptitude, the 9th level wasn't far away. If she really stepped into the 9th level and was taken away by the Divine Deity clan, she felt a chill just thinking about it. Chuli smiled. Junior sister doesn't need to worry too much. It's fine if you don't leave the sect when you reach the 9th level. Jing Huan nodded. You really don't go out when you reach the 9th level. All the elders in the sect are the same. They only attack when it's critical. Chu Li pondered. It seemed like this was also the deity clan's strategy. It was to prevent the ninth floor's lotus flower sect's experts from mobilizing. This way, it was equivalent to eliminating the lotus flower sect's strongest force. The golden light in the golden pool flickered and drilled into the bodies of the 9 monks. They slowly became more and more real. After a while, they opened their eyes. 18 rays of golden light flashed, and they returned to normal. "Let's go, junior brothers," said Jinghuan loudly. The 9 monks were startled, their eyes filled with confusion. Chu Li looked at the 9 of them. After reincarnation, they should have lost all their memories, just like newborn babies. However, from their expressions and eyes, it was clear that this was not the case. Their eyes flashed with blankness from time to time, but they were not lifeless. The 9 lotuses slowly brought them closer. Jinghuan said, "9 junior brothers, you are disciples of the lotus flower sect. Because you were killed, you reincarnated into the golden pool. Now, follow me to the valley to search for your lotus wheel." The 9 of them looked at each other and nodded. Unfamiliarity flashed in their eyes. Clearly, they did not recognize Jinghuan. Jinghuan was familiar with this kind of situation and was not sad. He brought them to the valley at the side. Lotus wheels suddenly flew out of the valley and headed straight for the 9 monks, disappearing in an instant. Golden light immediately flashed on their foreheads. Then, rays of brilliance circulated on their bodies. After a while, when they opened their eyes were already shining brilliantly as if they were tangible. Jinghuan revealed a smile. "Very good, then let's go back." Jingxue said, "Senior brother Jinghuan, could it be that the lotus wheels can identify their masters?" "The lotus wheels are connected to the soul," said Jinghuan. "They can find their masters in a moment." Chu Li frowned and said, "Then the lotus wheels we obtained are?" "The golden pool was not formed as soon as our lotus flower sect was founded." Jinghuan shook his head and said ruefully, "It was condensed through the painstaking efforts of countless predecessors. It is said that it is also the accumulation of merit. Before the golden pool condensed, the predecessors died, so they died completely." Chu Li revealed a rueful expression. The predecessors planted trees and the descendants enjoyed the shade. They indeed should thank these predecessors. Jinghuan said, "Our lotus flower sect currently only has 6 lotus wheels. You guys have taken 3, so there are only 3 left. Does that mean the lotus flower sect can no longer accept disciples?" asked Jingxue. Jinghuan shook his head. "We can accept disciples, but we can only accept 3 direct disciples unless another disciple directly enters reincarnation." "Directly enter reincarnation?" Jingxue was astonished. Could it be that the deity race can do it? Jinghuan shook his head. "It's not the deity race. They chose it themselves. Could it be that there are people who don't want to be reborn and directly reincarnate?" Jinghuan sighed and said, "There are." Jingxue's face was full of surprise. Jinghuan said, "Some seniors are already tired of living and don't want to continuously reincarnate from the golden pool. They directly enter reincarnation. These seniors are usually outstanding people. They can cultivate to the 9th level of the Lotus Secret Technique every time they reincarnate. Then, they keep on remembering their previous lives. This really isn't a beautiful experience. They get tired of it after a few times and might as well reincarnate directly. I can't think of one." Jingxue shook her head. Jinghuan sighed and said, "Sometimes, living for too long isn't that interesting." As he spoke, he brought the 9 people out of the valley and floated toward the lotus flower sect. Chi. Ding. Amidst the whistling sound, Jingxue's lotus wheel once again blocked in front of Jinghuan. A figure appeared once more, and then 2 more appeared behind him. They looked at the 11 of them with ridicule. Chu Li's face sank. This route had clearly been discovered. Last time he took this route, and this time Jinghuan took it. The deity race had already discovered the pattern and were waiting here. Ding, 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 ding. Chu Li's lotus wheel drifted erratically and shot toward a deity. Jingshua's lotus wheel was entangled with that deity, and the sound of ding rang out incessantly. The last remaining deity was met by Jinghuan. The three of them each held up a deity. The other nine's lotus wheels also flew out and surrounded Jinghuan's opponent. Humph! The deity snorted coldly and suddenly opened his vertical eye. Suddenly, a golden light shot toward a monk. The monk immediately froze and didn't move an inch. The lotus seat couldn't support him, and he fell straight down. Jinghuan's lotus wheel arrived at the monk's feet and supported him. The deity's vertical eye flashed again, and another golden light shot toward Jinghuan. Jinghuan's figure drifted, but he still couldn't dodge the golden light. The golden light was strange and abnormal, and he couldn't dodge it. A lotus wheel swept past the deity's neck, and his head flew up. Jinghuan's falling body paused for a moment, and then he floated up. The deity opposite Chu Li suddenly opened his vertical eye, and the golden light shot toward Chu Li. Chu Li's body tensed up, and he could already feel the impending doom. He activated God's limbs and appeared in the lotus flower sect in the next moment. Just as the golden light was about to hit him, the lotus flower sect suddenly swayed gently, and the golden light slowly dissipated unwillingly. Chu Li was lucky to escape. The next moment, he appeared beside Jinghuan, and the golden light came again. He pulled Jinghuan and disappeared, appearing in the lotus flower sect. The lotus flower sect swayed again, and the light was faintly discernible. The golden light slowly dissipated. The next moment, he appeared behind Jingshua. Jingshua had already stiffened and was falling. He picked her up and disappeared. Chapter 39-28. Junior brother Jingru, thank you. Jinghuan cupped his fist. Chu Li shook his head and said, Unfortunately, I can't save the other 9 senior brothers. It's the same whether they save him or not. Jinghuan said, I've just received the legacy, so my cultivation is shallow. It's similar to reincarnating. I'll just reincarnate again. Junior brother Jingru, your movement technique is truly impressive. To be able to avoid the pursuit of the god eyes, this Qin Gong had already surpassed the level of Qin Gong. Chu Li said, It's all thanks to the sect, or else. He shuddered at the thought of it. The threat of the divine eye made all the hairs on his body stand up, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Just as the divine eye was about to land on him, he rushed into the sect. It was a hair's breadth away from danger, so he didn't dare to try and save the other 9 people. It was true that the Lotus Flower sect had a powerful force protecting its disciples. The deity race was unable to get close to them. Jinghuan said, This is the divine feat, right? It's a new discovery that the divine feat can be used like this. Chu Li shook his head. Once they're on guard, I won't be able to escape either. Jinghuan frowned and thought for a moment before slowly nodding. Once he was noticed by the deity race, it would be useless even if he used the god's limbs. He would activate his god's eyes the moment he saw him or even hide in the dark. By the time he sensed danger and escaped, it would already be too late. What he feared the most was directly freezing him in the void. That would be the most terrifying, and he might not even be able to return to the golden pool for reincarnation. His soul would be lost in the void turbulence, and he wouldn't know where he would enter reincarnation. Jingshu asked, Then what do we do? At that moment, Su Xian came out gracefully and scanned the surroundings of the hall. She didn't see the other 9 people, so she looked at Jinghuan in puzzlement. Jinghuan smiled bitterly. Uncle Master, we encountered 3 sky gods on the way. It seems like they discovered our return and specially intercepted us. Oh, okay. Su Xian nodded. I'll report this to the sect. You don't need to go. It's all thanks to junior brother Jingru's divine feat that we were lucky enough to escape, said Jinghuan. Su Xian chuckled and said, The divine feat is indeed unique, but it still has to be based on the Lotus Secret technique. Jingru, you can't lose the bigger picture because of a small gain. Don't think that you can run amok just by relying on the divine feat. Chu Li nodded. Thank you, Masters Junior Su Xian. Su Xian smiled sweetly. It's good that you understand. She was worried that Chu Li did not mean what he said and would not listen to her. Youngsters were all conceited, feeling that they possessed divine abilities, unique and unmatched. That was why they looked down on the people of this world, disregarding the threat of heavenly deities, thus ending their own lives. He ascended from the lower realm. Unless he could step into the 9th level in one go and have the power to protect himself, he would definitely be reincarnated. Once he reincarnated and was reborn in the Golden Pool, all the inheritances from the lower realm would be washed away. He could only rely on the Lotus Wheel to inherit the Lotus Secret technique. Therefore, the real key was still the Lotus Secret technique. The rest were just fleeting clouds that would eventually be washed away. Instead of wasting time and effort to cultivate those mental cultivation methods that were destined to be washed away, it was better to focus on the endless inheritance of the Lotus Secret method. Even if it would be washed away in the Golden Pool, it would still be hidden in the soul bit by bit and have a huge impact. This tiny bit of influence could cause one's cultivation to advance extremely quickly. She could not explain everything in detail right away. She could only hope that Chu Li would listen to her and not be stubborn and arrogant. You can go back first. I won't send you out for the next few days, Su Xian said. Chu Li and Jingxue bowed with pressed palms and glided away on the lotus seat. Jingxue said, Senior brother Jingru, thank you. Her jade-like face tensed up. She was extremely dissatisfied with her performance. Her cultivation level was clearly higher, and her senses were sharper. She was better than Chu Li in every aspect, but Chu Li was the one who saved her every time. She owed him a huge favor which made her feel depressed. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. It's just a coincidence. It's also your fate, junior sister. The two soon arrived at Jingxue courtyard. Jingxue bowed with pressed palms, pushed the door open, and glided in. Chu Li also returned to his courtyard and began to cultivate the Lotus Secret technique. He was thinking about how he could quickly raise the level of the Lotus Secret technique. What he saw and heard today made him very vigilant. If his cultivation level was too low, he would be at the mercy of others. Even if he could reincarnate with the Golden Pool, without his current intelligence, it would not be easy to cultivate the Lotus Secret technique again. Therefore, no matter what, he must not be killed. He looked at the gradually blooming lotus in the pool and smiled. It seemed that he had quite a lot of merits and would soon condense another golden lotus. Compared to the golden lotus, his cultivation speed was much slower. On the morning of the 3rd day, Chu Li was cultivating the Lotus Secret technique in an attempt to make it more pure. Only with greater purity could he rise to a higher level. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Jing Huan was standing outside. Chu Li bowed with pressed palms. Jing Huan smiled. Junior brother, can we fight again? No problem. Chapter 39-29. With that said, the lotus seat beneath his feet carried him like a beam of light as he burrowed into the valley. Ding 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 ding. A clear cry sounded. Chu Li and Jingxue followed closely behind and saw a winged white tiger pouncing at Jinghuan. The lotus wheel in front of Jinghuan spun to meet the attack, but it was gently flapped away by the white tiger's long wings. Jinghuan's figure flashed as he dodged pathetically. The flying tiger's wings were very long, making its body appear petite. With a gentle flap, its body was like a flash of light. It was unbelievably fast, and the lotus wheel could barely block it. Chu Li shook his head. It wasn't that the lotus wheel wasn't powerful, but that the level of the Lotus Secret technique was too low. If he had used the 3rd level of the Lotus Secret technique, the lotus wheel would probably have slain the flying tiger. He couldn't care about anything else as his gaze landed on the dense snow-white flowers beside him. The snow-silver flowers lived up to their name. They were as white as silver, and the fist-sized flowers were like the peonies Chu Li had seen before. They were beautiful and compelling as they shimmered under the sunlight. They looked like they were made of silver and not real flowers. He took a step in front of a snow-silver flower, opened his sleeves, and swallowed it like a whale. The snow-silver flowers left their branches and burrowed into his sleeves. The branches and flowers split open and the cut was smooth. However, the lotus wheel silently sliced through it. The lotus wheel remained invisible. He was getting more and more familiar with the lotus wheel. It could be hidden and invisible to others, but it truly existed in the void. The lotus wheel seemed to fuse with the void, like a drop of water falling into the ocean. Jingxue was also busy plucking flowers. She opened her sleeves and the snow-silver flowers burrowed in. She suddenly turned her head and shouted, "Oh no! Woo!" With a long howl, 4 shadows shot over. One shot at Jinghuan, while the other 2 shot at Chu Li and Jingxue. Chu Li had already received Jingxue's warning. The next moment, he pulled her to Jinghuan's side. Bam! He suddenly flew out. He had already suffered a blow to his back. He flapped his wings gently, but it was like a mountain had crashed into him. He flew out involuntarily, but he still pulled Jingxue and Jinghuan along. A total of 5 tigers pounced at them at the same time, about to tear them apart. Chu Li and company suddenly vanished. The 5 tigers almost collided with each other and came to a sudden stop. Their long wings flapped, and their woo-woo sounds were filled with anger. Soon after, they circled around the valley, and their long roars rang out incessantly. The 3 of them appeared in front of the basilica. Pft! Chu Li slumped onto the lotus seat, crossed his legs, and began channeling to heal his injuries. Su Xian floated over. A smile appeared on her jade-like face as she nodded in satisfaction. No matter what, being able to return safely was already a miracle. Even if he failed, he could still try again. Uncle Master, junior brother Jingru was injured by the flying tiger, said Jinghuan with great difficulty. As he spoke, he weakly sat down on the lotus seat and crossed his legs. His face was as pale as paper. The few attacks just now had already consumed all of his energy. Coupled with the fact that he had almost been completely annihilated at the last moment, he was so frightened that he was on the verge of collapse. Su Xian went behind Chu Li and patted his back lightly. Chu Li felt a chilly force seeping into his internal organs, instantly reducing the scorching force by half. He took the opportunity to channel his inner energy to help this chilly force, but unfortunately, it still could not suppress the scorching force. They continued to wreak havoc in his internal organs, destroying his body without end. Su Xian exclaimed in surprise and patted Chu Li's back again. It seems that the flying tiger you encountered was quite powerful, but your luck is really good. It's just a flying tiger. In the past, the guardian beast of that valley wasn't the flying tiger, but the experts of the deity race. If a group of people went, only a few would be able to return safely. No matter how many people went, they would be helpless. Later on, the experts of the 9th level of the Lotus secret technique couldn't beat them, and the snowy silver flowers became fewer and fewer. They were already in dire need. Who would have thought that when they went to probe, it was actually just a flying tiger? Jingxue said, Uncle Master, there's a deity race expert there, but he probably saw that we were too weak and couldn't be bothered to make a move, so he only sent a flying tiger. How lucky! Su Xian nodded. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. The omniscient mystical mirror didn't detect the deity race expert, but Jingxue did. Clearly, she had a secret technique similar to the omniscient mystical mirror, or even more powerful. He vaguely felt that after coming to this world, the omniscient mystical mirror had lost its sharpness and was slow and difficult to operate. He also found the reason. The omniscient mystical mirror had fused with the mystical sky mirror, and was a wondrous art for divining the mysteries of heaven. This world was different from the world below. The laws of heaven and earth were different, so divining the mysteries of heaven was naturally inaccurate. This caused the omniscient mystical mirror to be difficult to operate. If he wanted to integrate it once more, he needed to have a clear understanding of this world. The more he understood, the more wonderful it would be. The omniscient mystical mirror's power would become stronger, but now it could only act as his eyes. It could see further and deeper, but its prediction of danger was far from enough. Will I be so lucky next time? Jing Huan opened his eyes and shook his head. Junior brother Jinru, you were too willful this time. You shouldn't have cared about me. Leaving was the most important thing. You have to understand that compared to the snowy silver flowers, my life isn't worth mentioning. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Jing Huan sighed. Junior brother Jinru, I'm naturally grateful that you saved my life, but this time you made the wrong choice. What if the deity race expert suddenly attacked? Then everything between us would be destroyed, and even you guys would have to accompany me in reincarnation. Jinru, you still haven't gotten used to the way of thinking of us Lotus Sect disciples. Life and death aren't important. The mission is the most important. Even if you die, you have to complete it. Su Xian smiled sweetly. It seems unreasonable, but death is indeed no big deal to us Lotus Sect disciples. Chu Li said, Masters Junior, I understand. That's good. Su Xian smiled sweetly. God's limbs also contributed this time, but I still have to remind you that God's limbs isn't enough. Chu Li nodded slowly, indicating that he understood. He slowly took out the snowy silver flowers from his sleeve, one after another. In the end, there were a total of 64 flowers, and Jingshue's sleeve contained 40. Over 100 snowy silver flowers made Su Xian beam with joy. Her smile surpassed the snowy silver flowers. Su Xian suddenly laughed out loud. Good, good, truly impressive. Chu Li and Jingxue looked at her in surprise. Jing Huan understood and didn't reveal any strange expression. Su Xian restrained her laughter and shook her head with a sigh. It's been a long time since I've harvested so many snowy silver flowers. This is a great emergency. Jingru Jingxue, you've contributed a lot this time. The sect will reward you. Chu Li said, Masters Junior, there's no need for a reward. Ever since he entered the Lotus sect, he had received the inheritance of the secret Lotus technique and the golden pool to reshape his body. He had received great grace. A mere snowy silver flower really wasn't worth much of a reward. If I give you a reward, just take it. Don't be so long-winded. Su Xian scoffed. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Su Xian turned to look at Jingxue and Jing Huan. And you guys, there's no lack of rewards. I'll go back first. She waved her sleeve, and the snowy silver flowers on the ground disappeared. She was carried away by the lotus flower. What rewards will there be? Jingxue asked. Jing Huan said, once the sect rewards, they won't be stingy. It won't be an ordinary item. Chu Li's heart suddenly moved. He felt the strangeness of his golden lotus of merit. Chapter 39:30. He opened his mouth and threw the golden lotus seed into it. It turned into a fresh breath that circulated in his internal organs and quickly nourished his body. He naturally activated the secret lotus technique, and the third level was suddenly connected. All kinds of puzzles and problems were naturally solved. He stepped into the third level of the secret lotus technique in one go, and the lotus seat under his feet had already turned into a 3-layered lotus. He moved slightly, and 2 figures of him appeared on the spot, one real and one fake, but it was caused by the speed. He could not help but shake his head. The power of the secret lotus technique at the third level had increased several times. Just the speed alone was already a few times faster than before, and the secret lotus technique greatly increased the speed. Woo! The lotus wheel broke through the air and instantly circled the courtyard. He had already deduced that the speed of the lotus wheel had also increased by 2 times. It was really unparalleled, and it might have already exceeded the reaction speed. He could not help but sigh. If it was already so overbearing at the 3rd level, then how powerful would it be at the 9th level? He suddenly turned his head to look at the courtyard next to him. Jing Shui's courtyard also had a strange phenomenon. The merit golden lotus seed was condensed, and after she swallowed it, she also reached the 3rd level. Then, his gaze fell on Jing Huan. Jing Huan's courtyard was above them, more than 200 meters away. At this time, he also swallowed the merit golden lotus, and his skill greatly increased to the 3rd level. Su Xian gently knocked on the door, then pushed it open and entered. Seeing the lotus seat under Chu Li's feet, she pursed her lips and smiled. It's reached the 3rd level, is the merit enough? Chu Li said, I didn't expect the merit of picking the snow silver flower to be so great. Because the snow silver flower is too important to our lotus sect. It's related to life and death. Su Xian said, although you didn't kill any important people this time, the merit is immeasurable. Condensing only 1 golden lotus seed is already very little. Chu Li said, since the snow silver flower is so important, it should be planted in the sect, but it's not here now. That means it can only grow in that valley, right? Su Xian nodded lightly and sighed emotionally. Worldly oddities naturally need a very special environment to live. We've tried for a long time, but we can't plant the snow silver flower here. We want to, but we can't. Chu Li pondered. It can't grow? It can't. Su Xian shook her head and said, that valley might contain a strange energy that stimulates the growth of the snow silver flowers. If we leave that valley, the snow silver flower's vitality will gradually dissipate. We can only use it as medicine as soon as possible. Chu Li said, Masters Junior, I want to try. You? Su Xian asked in surprise, you're proficient in planting? Chu Li nodded slowly, revealing a confident look. Alright, you can give it a try. However, you need to find a snow silver flower tree, Su Xian said with a frown. This was not an easy task. It was pure luck that they were able to pluck so many snowy silver flowers the last time. Seeing how Chu Li and the others received such a huge amount of merit, it was obvious how rare it was. This time, if the 3 of them went again, it was very likely that they would all be wiped out. Chu Li said, Masters Junior, I'll go. Alone? Su Xian asked. Chu Li nodded. That's enough. If I can't do it myself, there's no point in going. Masters Junior, I'll go too. Jingshu stepped into Chu Li's courtyard and calmly said, I can help senior brother Jingru. Alright. Su Xian nodded slowly. She wasn't too optimistic either, but they had all ascended from the lower realm and were elites among elite. It was very likely that they had some unique secret skills and could do what others couldn't. There might even be a surprise. Masters Junior, I'll go too. Jing Huan also appeared. He was prepared to exchange pointers with Chu Li. He sighed inwardly, as expected of someone who had ascended from the lower realm. He was indeed worth befriending. He didn't expect to encounter such a scene and take the initiative to ask to fight. Chu Li shook his head. Jing Huan, you don't have to go. Su Xian shook her head. The 2 of them are enough. If they can succeed, then so be it. If they can't, we won't lose much. If they can't, you can try alone. Jing Huan had more combat experience. If he acted alone, he would be a smaller target and it would be easier to escape. Chu Li smiled. Don't worry, senior brother Jing Huan. If I really can't do it, I'll use God's limbs to come back. I'm just afraid it'll be too late. Jing Huan shook his head and sighed. If it's really as junior sister Jingxue said and there's a deity race master there, he'll probably use his God's eye the moment he sees you. I'll be careful, Chu Li said. Jing Huan shook his head and smiled bitterly, but he didn't force it. Chu Li pulled up Jingshue's sleeve and disappeared in a flash. Masters Junior, can they succeed? Jing Huan frowned and said worriedly, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult. Not necessarily. Su Xian smiled sweetly. They're people with outstanding comprehension and quick reactions. You'll be a burden if you go. Jing Huan smiled helplessly. The next moment, Chu Li and Jing Shui appeared on a mountain peak. Jing Shui swept her gaze across the valley and sensed it with rapt attention. She shook her head. There's still fatal danger. There's even a deity race master guarding there. Chu Li muttered to himself in silence. Jing Shui said, We'll definitely die if we go in this time. Then we won't go in, Chu Li said. Jing Shui smiled. How are we going to pluck the snow silver tree if we don't go in? Chu Li closed his eyes and opened them a moment later. Let's go. The two appeared on another mountain peak in a flash and arrived in front of a strange fruit tree. These fruits resembled peaches but weren't peaches. They didn't have any peculiar smell, but they looked extremely bright. Jing Shui's expression changed slightly as she said hurriedly, They're highly poisonous. Chu Li nodded. They should be. As he spoke, he waved his hand lightly. A brightly colored red fruit floated over and hung in front of him. Chu Li didn't reach out to take it. The next moment, he brought Jing Shui to a cave. The cave looked serene and deep, and there was a faint sweet smell coming from it. Jing Shui's expression changed again. There's poison here. Chu Li smiled. Yes, there is. Roar! A low growl suddenly came from the cave. Then, a gray monkey came out. The voice wasn't a monkey's, but it was deep like thunder. It stood at the entrance of the cave and stared coldly at the two. Its eyes opened and closed like cold lightning. Jing Shui frowned and tensed up. She was already prepared to attack. Chu Li suddenly tossed out that brightly colored fruit. The gray monkey nimbly caught it and threw it into its mouth after a glance. The juice flowed everywhere and the fragrance assailed its nostrils. It revealed an intoxicated expression. Chu Li stared at it motionlessly. Then, he slowly extended his hand. The gray monkey looked at his hand warily. Then, it slowly extended its furry right palm. Their palms came together. Chu Li immediately entered the void of its mind through his eye of insight. The two began to communicate. A moment later, the gray monkey growled and suddenly turned into a ray of gray light before disappearing. Jing Shui looked at him curiously. Chu Li smiled. I'm asking it to help me get a snow silver tree. It can help? Jing Shui asked doubtfully. Chu Li said, It likes to eat that kind of fruit just now. However, that fruit is also difficult to find, so it can get it. Chapter 39-31. Jingshue's bright eyes moved as she looked around. Her delicate body was tense, ready to attack at any time. This was a dangerous place where beasts could pounce at any time. Moreover, these beasts were a huge threat. Even with the three-stage lotus secret technique, they would still be devoured. Chu Li smiled. This gray monkey is a spirit monkey. Its intelligence isn't inferior to humans, but it's a bit greedy. The huge amount of merit this time made him overjoyed. He also wanted to farm merit points and had been thinking about how to get the snowy silver flower. Picking the snowy silver flower didn't mean he had to do it himself. He hadn't been able to display his abilities. In the lower realm, the heavenly spirit scripture was a forbidden technique, but it was different in this realm. He could feel the heavenly spirit scripture's liveliness. The drooping heavenly spirit beast on the tree of life and death was now full of vigor and intelligence. Since he couldn't rely on Buddhism's divine power, the heavenly spirit scripture was his unique advantage. There were more birds and beasts in this world, and they were more intelligent. The heavenly spirit scripture was like a fish in water here. The gray monkey was able to touch his palm because of the heavenly spirit beast. Without the heavenly spirit scripture and heavenly spirit beast, the gray monkey wouldn't have approached or believed anyone else, even if they were as pure as Jingxue. With the heavenly spirit scripture, he could communicate with spirit beasts and borrow their power. The deity race could control these beasts, but he might not be able to. Unfortunately, his two beasts were still sleeping in the lower realm. If they were by his side, it would be much easier for him in this world. That was why he couldn't die no matter what. Once he died, he would be reincarnated in the Golden Pond and his memories would be sealed. With his original aptitude and without the scripture of wisdom, his comprehension wouldn't be far from ordinary people. Jingxue frowned. Why isn't it here yet? Could it have been killed by an enlightened master? Chu Li shook his head. The deity race is very friendly to beasts. They won't kill it unless it's absolutely necessary. Jingxue said, beasts act on instinct and are straightforward. They would have picked it if they could. Something must have happened since it hasn't appeared yet. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Junior sister, you've underestimated its intelligence. It's definitely not inferior to humans. It's patient and must be waiting for an opportunity. As soon as he finished speaking, a gray shadow suddenly flashed past. The gray monkey then appeared in front of them, holding a small tree in his hand. It was about the same height as Chu Li. Chu Li was overjoyed. 3 brightly colored fruits flew towards the gray monkey. Woo! The gray monkey roared excitedly and tossed the snow-silver blossom towards Chu Li. It opened its mouth wide and swallowed one of the fruit. Then, it carefully caught the fruits with its remaining hand. As the juice flowed in all directions, it quickly swallowed the fruit in its mouth. Then, it whimpered a few times and gestured twice. Chu Li nodded and placed his hand on its shoulder. It allowed Chu Li to do whatever he wanted and was not on guard. Chu Li patted its shoulder, then disappeared in a flash with the snow-silver flowering tree and Jingxue. Jingxue was still in shock. When Chu Li appeared in his courtyard, it asked, "What did it just say?" Chu Li smiled and said, "It said we can work together. It can even get the snowy silver flower tree. There are indeed deity race masters in that ravine. I'll definitely die if I go there." Jingxue asked in puzzlement, "You can communicate with it?" Chu Li said, "It's the Buddhist's eye of insight." Buddhist divine powers still have unique uses, marveled Jingxue. Su Xian was still there. She stared at the snowy silver flowering tree in Chu Li's hand. Her bright eyes were already slightly red, as if she was about to cry. Chu Li asked, "Masters Junior, is this the snowy silver flower?" All right. Su Xian did not hold out much hope at first, but when she saw this, she sighed in admiration. "This is the true snow-silver flower tree." Chu Li smiled. "That's good. Jingru, do you really know planting techniques?" Su Xian looked at him hesitantly. Although she had agreed to let Chu Li give it a try, when she really saw the snow-silver flowering tree, she couldn't bear to part with it. In the past, when the deity clan didn't exist, they had already experimented countless times without success, so they could experiment as much as they wanted. But ever since the deity race appeared, they couldn't even obtain a snowy silver flower, let alone a snowy silver flower tree. It was extremely rare, and they had never succeeded. Their experience was completely useless. Su Xian couldn't help but feel reluctant when she saw the snow-silver flowering tree. Chu Li said, "Masters Junior, I'll give it a try. I can't guarantee that I'll succeed." "Alright, then you can give it a try. If it doesn't work, then forget it." Su Xian spat out these words with difficulty. She suddenly thought that since this Jingru had always been creating miracles and had always had good luck, maybe she would have good luck this time as well. If she could really plant the snowy silver flower tree, the lotus sex predicament would be solved. Her heart thumped nonstop when she thought of this, and she couldn't help but feel hopeful. Chu Li said, "Then I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, I'll go get 2 more. As he spoke, he picked up the snowy silver flower tree and directly planted it in the flower bed at the southeast corner. He dug a hole, stuck it in, and buried it. He waved his hand, and a stream of water from the nearby lotus pond flew out and sprinkled down in midair, evenly sprinkling on the snowy silver flower tree. Su Xian opened her mouth but eventually closed it. She wanted to remind Chu Li that he couldn't do this. This was simply a reckless waste of natural resources. It was like planting an ordinary tree. The snowy silver flower tree was very precious, so how could it be treated like this? However, she remembered that she had already handed it over to Chu Li, so she shouldn't say anything and just wait for the final result. She thought that out of sight, out of mind, so she smiled sweetly. Jingru, nurture it well. Call me when it really grows, and we'll see the results tomorrow morning. Chu Li fist saluted. Su Xian fluttered away. Jingxue sized up the snowy silver flower tree. Can it really grow? Chu Li said, it shouldn't be a problem. Is it also a Buddhist divine power? Jingxue asked. Chu Li shook his head. Jingxue revealed a smile. All of us have secret. Senior brother, you have them, and so do I. Senior brother Jingzhen has even more. As she spoke, she glanced in the direction of Jingzhen's courtyard with a solemn expression. Chu Li asked, is he really that dangerous? He couldn't see through Jingzhen's thoughts, nor did he feel his killing intent, but he believed that Jingxue wouldn't lie to him. He had always been on guard, and the Great Circle mystical mirror had been observing Jingzhen's courtyard. Jingzhen's cultivation was different from theirs. His movements were strange, and it was completely different from the secret lotus technique. Moreover, his body would flash with a black light from time to time. It was mysterious and dignified, and no one dared to underestimate him. Right at that moment, a muffled bang was heard from Jingzhen's body. Then, the muffled sounds rang out incessantly. It was as if a heavy drum was being beaten in his body. Jingzhen's body kept flashing with black light. With each sound, the black light became denser. After 28 sounds, the black light had completely covered him. It looked like there was only a black fog, and his figure couldn't be seen. Chu Li frowned. He didn't know what kind of mystical technique this was. Jingshue's expression was solemn as she said, Senior brother Jingzhen is in even more danger now. Chu Li nodded. As he spoke, he channeled the life and death scripture and transferred vitality into the snowy silver flower tree. He saw that the snowy silver flower tree's vitality was constantly dissipating at an extremely fast rate. At this rate, it would completely die in 2 hours. The life and death scripture slowed down the speed of its death, but it was still rushing toward destruction. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 39-32. She was extremely sensitive, and could faintly sense the snowy silver tree's abnormality, but did not ask. Chu Li frowned and pondered. If this went on, he still wouldn't be able to save the snow silver tree, let alone make it bloom. It needed enough vitality. The withering and thriving tree was already increasing its vitality very quickly, but it couldn't withstand its special characteristics, so it was dying even faster. He glanced around and shook his head. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was abundant and much richer than the lower realm. It could also be converted into inner energy, so the martial arts in this world were especially powerful. Inner energy could be released and looked magical. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was pure and abundant, but it did not mean that the vitality was much stronger. This vitality was a power that surpassed spiritual energy. It was a level higher and was born from the earth, nurturing and creating all things. He thought about it and waved his hand. A stone flew into his hand. The lotus wheel broke out of the void and gently swept across the stone. The stone turned into 4 stone talismans. They were the size of a palm, uniform in thickness and as smooth as a mirror. What are you doing? Jingxue suddenly laughed. Are you setting up a formation? Chu Li nodded. Junior sister Jingxue knows formations too? I know a thing or two. Jingxue nodded. Chu Li smiled. Can formations be used in this world? Jingxue shook her head. It's useless. It's two different worlds. The original formation has no effect. Chu Li frowned and pondered. He nodded slowly. Since the formation in Jingshue's world could not be used in this world, his formation would probably be useless too. However, he would not give up until he tried. He quickly set up a small 4-elephant formation, but there was no reaction. He picked up another stone and did the same thing, carving Yuan on it. The moment the Yuan was done, he mobilized his inner energy. A wave gradually spread out. Chu Li smiled. He did not expect the Yuan to be useful in this world. His excitement quickly dissipated. After activating a few Yuan, he realized that the power of the Yuan was greatly reduced. It was many times weaker. As such, the value of the Yuan was not great. Even if it could be used, it was useless. He shook his head and sighed. Jingxue said, "Senior brother, there's no rush. The Lotus sect should have formations. You can just learn them." "I'm afraid not." Chu Li shook his head. Previously, he had already used the omniscient profound void mirror to take a look. Although the Lotus Flower sect was protected by an invisible power and was extremely bizarre, there were no other formations set up in the Lotus Flower sect. Even the lotus ponds in the courtyard were not formations, but an even more bizarre power. He could not figure out this power, but it seemed to be related to the power of merit. This was a completely foreign realm to him, and he judged that his cultivation level was too low. When his cultivation level was deep enough, he would naturally enter the next level. Jingxue said, "Since formations can be used in this world, how can a large sect like the Lotus Flower sect not have one?" Chu Li pondered for a moment before he turned around and glided out of the courtyard. He arrived in front of a basilica. Su Xian had already sensed his presence and glided out of the basilica to welcome him. Chu Li expressed his intentions for coming. He wanted to know if the Lotus sect had any formations. "There are." Su Xian gently nodded and frowned. "But the array formation needs the snow silver flower as a guide. Snow silver flower was scarce a while ago, so the sect's array formation was turned off." Chu Li raised his eyebrows. He did not expect the snowy silver flower to be the catalyst for the formation. "You also know about formations?" Su Xian said, "Wait a moment." She left quietly and returned after a short while with a wooden box in her hand. It was about half the height of a person and looked unusually heavy, but she carried it as if it was made of paper. She handed it to Chu Li and said, "This is the secret book of our sect's formations. You can take a look. I believe that with your comprehension, you will be able to learn and understand it." Chu Li was overjoyed and closed-fist saluted. "Thank you, Masters Junior." Su Xian said, "Formations are only auxiliary. The key is still the secret method of the lotus. Don't lose sight of the bigger picture and go astray." Chu Li closed-fist saluted and nodded, gliding away. Su Xian looked at his back and shook her head. This disciple's aptitude was excellent, but his mind was a mess. His achievements were probably limited. Could he really grow a living snowy silver flower? She sighed and turned back. When Chu Li glided back to his courtyard, Jingxue had not left yet. She was waiting for him. When she saw him return with a box, she went forward to help him open it. There were thick books of formations inside. Jingxue picked one up and slowly flipped through it. Chu Li also picked up another one and flipped through it. His movements were fast, and he quickly flipped through one book and then the next. After half a day, he had read the entire box of formation books while activating the life and death scripture and had already imprinted them into his mind. He had already realized that these formation books were different from the ones he had read before. After careful analysis, he realized that the difference was slight, but this slight difference led to a world of difference. He took out a snowy silver flower from his sleeve and squeezed it gently. The juice that flowed out was smeared on the stone plate with the yuan carved on it. The stone plate's aura instantly flourished and was already comparable to the Yuan in the lower realm. As time passed, the power of the Yuan increased. Chu Li smiled. Compared to formations, the Yuan was simpler and more profound. It was harder to learn, but it was more convenient to learn than formations. He quickly wrote a few Yuan and smeared the snowy silver flower juice. Soon, a few Yuan tablets were activated and thrown to the side of the snowy silver flower tree. They formed a formation that absorbed endless vitality and slowed down the speed at which vitality dissipated, giving him a chance to catch his breath. After he threw a few more Yuan tablets, the vitality flourished until it reached saturation. It was difficult to increase the speed at which vitality gathered. If it were anyone else, they would only be able to watch it dissipate even if they had abundant vitality. They would not be able to save the snowy silver flower tree. The snowy silver flower tree would not actively absorb vitality. Chu Li had the life and death scripture, so he gathered it on the snowy silver flower tree and increased its vitality. Jing Shui was shocked as she watched his snowy silver flower tree turn from listless to full of vitality. Then, it slowly produced flower buds and seemed to be about to bloom. Its growth speed was amazingly fast. She had not expected the snowy silver flower tree to grow so quickly. However, Chu Li knew that this was due to the catalysis of vitality. With abundant vitality, the power of the life and death scripture was beyond imagination. Under Jing Shui's gaze, the snowy silver flower tree grew larger bit by bit. Then, flower buds appeared and it bloomed. In the early morning, a flower had already bloomed on the snowy silver flower tree after the night had passed. However, before the snowy silver flower tree could completely unfurl, Chu Li and Jing Shui stared at it. Suddenly, a black shadow swept towards the snowy silver flower tree. Chu Li frowned as cold lightning flashed in his eyes. The lotus wheel suddenly blocked in front of the black shadow but was knocked away with a ding. Then, a black light wrapped around the lotus wheel. The golden light on the lotus wheel flickered incessantly as it fought with the black light. A black shadow had already arrived in front of the snowy silver flower tree and was reaching out to pluck the tree. Ding! Another lotus wheel blocked in front of him. It was Jing Shui's lotus wheel. A black light wrapped around Jing Shui's lotus wheel again. The lotus wheel froze and began to fight with the black light. The black shadow had already revealed itself. It was Jingzhen. "Senior brother Jingzhen, what are you doing?" Jing Shui shouted in a deep voice. Jingzhen's eyes were smiling, but his hands did not slow down. He continued to reach towards the snowy silver flower tree. Bang! Chu Li had already blocked in front of him. His right palm met Jingzhen's left palm, producing a loud, dull sound. Chapter 39-33. His originally white palm seemed to have been smeared with a layer of ash, becoming dim and lightless. Furthermore, a cold energy traveled from his palm to his wrist, then to his elbow and shoulder before attacking his heart. It was cold and sharp like a sharp knife stabbing in. The third level of the Lotus secret technique couldn't block it. Buzz! Chu Li suddenly formed a hand seal and let out a shout that sounded like a copper bell being struck. The inside of his body shook as well. His flesh and blood condensed and shook endlessly, emitting a formless wave that dispersed the cold and sharp energy. However, he broke out in a cold sweat in fright and used this secret technique to block it. Huh! Jingzhen looked at Chu Li in surprise. He didn't expect Chu Li to be able to block his supreme demonic technique. There was nothing it couldn't attack and could kill people of a higher level. Chu Li said in a low voice, "Junior sister Jingxue, you go first." Jingxue said, "No, let's go together." She was already standing beside Chu Li and staring coldly at Jingzhen. "Who are you?" A smile appeared on Jingzhen's face. "A disciple of the Lotus sect." "What are you doing?" Jingxue frowned. Jingzhen smiled. "Junior sister, I'm just joking. You guys are too serious. This flower is very beautiful and I want to take it for a look. Why are you making such a fuss? His gaze swept across the two of them, cold as the wind. He had a smile on his face and a cold gaze as though he was looking at prey. Chu Li said, Senior Brother Jingjin isn't cultivating the Lotus secret technique, right? I'm cultivating my original martial arts, Jingjin said. Chu Li sighed in admiration. It's truly a powerful technique with such power. It's a pity that the paths aren't right. Hee. Jingjin shook his head and laughed. The paths of martial arts are just a joke. Martial arts that can defeat the enemy are good martial arts. I ascended by killing. Chu Li frowned. Killing for merit? He didn't expect that he would ascend by killing. However, when he thought about Azura, he felt relieved. Every world had its own unique rules. He had ascended by relying on merit, so it wasn't strange for Jingjin to rely on killing. Jingxue said, The Lotus sect forbids killing each other. It won't be good if you hurt us. That's fine. Jingjin smiled. I'm leaving the Lotus sect. Chu Li stared at him and said, You've already defected to the deity race. Hee. Jingjin shook his head and said, No matter how stupid I am, I won't rely on the deity race. Hand over that flower and I can spare your lives. As he spoke, the lotus wheel had already appeared. His lotus wheel was originally white, with a faint golden light flowing around it. However, his lotus wheel had turned completely black, with a faint dim light flowing around it. It was mysterious and majestic, and no one dared to look at it directly. Chu Li sighed to himself. Although Jingjin's mental cultivation technique was extremely murderous, it was also a mysterious technique with a shocking aura. It was definitely not a simple evil technique. Jingxue sneered. Do you really think you can beat us for sure? As long as you shout, someone will come immediately. That's too late. Jingjin said, Moreover, my mental cultivation technique is different from this world's. Once I kill them, they'll enter reincarnation. I cultivate the rebirth technique. Jingxue said, Then let's give it a try. Chu Li shook his head. Forget it, the snow silver flower belongs to you. You may leave. Jingxue hurriedly said, Senior Brother Jingru. Chu Li said, After all, we're from the same sect. Why must we kill each other? Although the snow silver flower is important, it's not unique in this world. However, there's something I don't understand. Jingjin's smile widened, and his black wheel spun a little slower. Since Junior Brother is so tactful, I'll try my best to answer. Chu Li asked, Which sect is Senior Brother Jingjin planning to join? The Church of Nine Spectres, Jingjin said. The rebirth technique was originally the Church of Nine Spectres antique study. As long as I join them, I'll be the next leader of the Church of Nine Spectres. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. He knew that Jingjin said this to pressure him. The Lotus sect would not dare to do anything to the next leader of the Church of Nine Spectres. Otherwise, the Church of Nine Spectres would definitely go to war with the Lotus sect. Chu Li slowly nodded. All right, I'll give it to you, Senior Brother. As he spoke, he plucked the snow silver flower and gently flicked it. The snow silver flower slowly floated to Jingjin's hand. Jingjin reached out and grabbed the snow silver flower. A hint of surprise appeared on his face as he chuckled. Very good. I'll take my leave now. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure began to fade as he was about to merge into the void. Swoosh! The black wheel instantly reached Chu Li's neck and was about to cut off his head. It flew past Chu Li's head without any obstruction, but it was just a shadow. Chu Li had already disappeared, and so had Jingxue. Jingjin swept his gaze around but did not see them. He could only stomp his feet in anger and was about to disappear. Bang! His body suddenly burst with a black light. The snow silver flower in his hand shot a dazzling golden light at him, but it was blocked by the black light. Jingru! He gritted his teeth. He had never been schemed against like this before. It was truly humiliating. He must kill Jingru. As soon as he thought about this, he saw a golden light sprinkling down. Black light burst out from his body and blocked the golden light. For a moment they were in a stalemate, and the golden light did not touch his body. He looked at the void and saw 4 figures sitting cross-legged on the lotus seats. The lotus seats were suspended in mid-air. They each held a huge snow-white lotus in their hands that was about the size of their faces. The snow-white lotus emitted a gentle golden light. This golden light condensed and fused together, forming a golden light that enveloped Jingzhen like a golden net. The 4 were middle-aged. They were handsome and had gentle and peaceful temperaments. Jingzhen, as a disciple of the Lotus Flower sect, you betrayed the sect and left. You are a traitor of the Lotus Flower sect. Quickly give up resisting. Considering that you have yet to cause a fatal calamity, you can be dealt with leniently. If you persist in going about things the wrong way, your soul will be destroyed and you will never be able to reincarnate. A thin and handsome middle-aged man in the lead shook his head and said. He sized up Jingzhen with a gentle gaze. Although you cultivate the martial arts of the 9 Nether cult, you have inherited the ultimate study of the Lotus Flower sect. You can cultivate both. Why must you betray the Lotus Flower sect and join the 9 Nether cult? With that said, he glanced at Chu Li and Jing Shui, who were standing in the distance. Chu Li and Jing Shui also stood on the lotus seat in the void and looked calmly at Jingzhen. Jingzhen did not even look at the 4. Amidst the golden and black light, he glared coldly at Chu Li and Jing Shui. The corners of his mouth curled into a strange smile that was indescribably cold. Jing Shui said, "He's very dangerous. Furthermore, he wants to kill you. Senior brother Jingru, be careful. The 9 Nether cult is very strange." Chu Li nodded slowly. He did not want to cause trouble. He only wanted to find Miss Zhou. Unfortunately, things did not go his way. Trouble came to him, so he could only kill it. Jingzhen was a formidable opponent with limitless potential. Jingzhen stared straight at Chu Li. Jing Shui suddenly said, "Let's go." Chu Li pulled her and suddenly disappeared. Just as he disappeared, a ripple flashed through the void. It missed by a hair's breadth and failed to injure Chu Li. Chu Li had already appeared elsewhere. He looked at Jingzhen with lingering fear. If not for Jing Shui's sharp senses, he would have been hit. The ripple made his hair stand on end. His entire body felt cold. If he had not dodged it, his life would have been in danger. Chapter 39-34. How could they let them off so easily when they were nothing? Junior brothers, attack with all your might, the thin, handsome middle-aged man said slowly. Yes, senior brother Su Huan, the 3 of them answered. The lotus in his hand suddenly shone brightly, and the golden light turned purplish gold. It was originally entangled with the black light, but now it suddenly broke through the golden light and reached Jingzhen's chest, wrapping around him. At first glance, Jingzhen seemed to be wearing golden armor. Jingzhen's face was even blocked, so his expression could not be seen. Chu Li shook his head. Seeing that their lotus seats had 5 layers, he knew how powerful they were. It was a pure suppression. No matter how profound their martial arts were, there was nothing they could do if their skills were too far apart. Jing Shui's face tensed up. She frowned as she stared at Jingzhen under the golden light. The golden light swayed and twisted incessantly. Then, black light gradually pierced through and shot out like black needles. Chu Li was shocked. He asked softly, "He can still escape?" "The 9 Ghost cult is very strange," Jingzhen said softly. "Senior brother, you haven't read about them, have you?" Chu Li shook his head. He had been focused on cultivating and exploring this world with his senses. He wanted to understand the rules of the world from the void, so that the great circle mystical void mirror could regain its clarity and sharpness. Jingshu said, "I've read through a lot of information on the various sections. The 9 Ghost cult is unfathomable, and their disciples are all very strange. Their sect's secret art, the reincarnation method, is even more mysterious and unfathomable. Chu Li asked, "Can senior brother Jingzhen escape?" "It's hard to say," Jingshui said. Chu Li smiled. "That can't be. The Lotus sect must know the power of the reincarnation technique. How can they not be prepared? The key is that they don't know that Jingzhen cultivates the reincarnation technique." Jing Shui scoffed. "I thought he only cultivated the martial arts of the Nine Ghost cult. I underestimated him and got careless." Chu Li nodded slowly. Bang! With a muffled sound, the sky full of black light expelled the purplish gold light. Jingzhen stood on a lotus pedestal and floated into the air. His hair fluttered in the wind as black light circled around his body. His eyes shot out black light as he looked down at everyone present like a demon god. The expressions of Su Huan and the others were solemn. Their white robes fluttered in the wind, and the lotus in their hands changed once more. Originally, there was only one, but as the light twisted, it became 5. The 5 lotuses glowed, forming their phantoms. They slowly floated up, and then the 5 phantoms condensed into a golden light that revolved in front of each of them, forming a dazzling golden halo. The golden ring's brilliance circulated, and it was real. The 4 golden rings shot towards Jingzhen and condensed into a golden ring in midair that enveloped Jingzhen. Jingzhen sneered and gently pressed down with his palm. A black palm print flew out and expanded with the wind. In the end, it became 10 times bigger. It held the golden ring in its hand, as if it was a hand holding a golden ring. The golden light and black light clashed once more, and with a loud bang, both of them perished and dissipated. Chu Li frowned. Jingxue said softly, "You can tell how powerful the cycle art is, right?" Chu Li shook his head and said, "No matter how powerful it is, it's impossible to surpass the gap in skill." Not only were Su Huan and the others' cultivation profound, but it was also extremely pure. The Lotus secret technique pursued purity in the first place, but seeing that the cycle art was even purer, it was like a wooden knife, no matter how big or heavy, would still be at a disadvantage when it encountered a sharp dagger. However, this was the Lotus sect, not the outside world. Jingzhen still couldn't gain an advantage. "Ha ha!" Suddenly, a hearty laughter rang out and spread throughout the entire Lotus sect. The laughter came from outside, but it could spread throughout the Lotus sect. It could be seen how profound it was, but it didn't shake one's soul. Clearly, the control of inner energy was exquisite and profound, and the heat was just right. 9 Underworld Zhao Qingquan greets everyone from the Lotus sect. The laughter became clearer and clearer, pleasant to the ear. Jingxue frowned and said, "This is troublesome." Chu Li slowly nodded. It was definitely not a coincidence that Zhao Qingquan suddenly came here. It was clearly for Jingzhen. "Protector Zhao, please enter." A gentle and beautiful female voice rang out. "Thank you, Abbess Xian Miao." Zhao Qingquan's voice rang out. Chu Li had already seen the situation outside through the great circle mystical void mirror. A handsome man with a tall and straight figure stood outside with his hands behind his back, stepping on the void. The black robe on his body was faintly discernible, as if it would disappear into the void at any time. It seemed real yet illusory. Following the gentle and beautiful voice, a beautiful nun stepped on a lotus seat and lightly floated to the outside of the sect, standing in front of the handsome man, Zhao Qingquan. Zhao Qingquan gave a fist salute and said with a smile, "Abbess Xian Miao, how have you been?" The beautiful and petite nun said indifferently, "I'm fine." She turned around and lightly floated back, while Zhao Qingquan followed behind her. Jingzhen's spirit was greatly lifted. Su Huan and the others also became spirited. The 5 lotuses in their hands burst forth with purple gold light, then condensed into a large punish word. The 4 punish words floated in the air, spinning as they enveloped Jingzhen. Jingzhen roused himself, and the black light on his body transformed into a sharp sword, stabbing straight at the 4 punish words. Woo! A strange whistling sound rang out. The black light destroyed 3 punish words, but it couldn't block the last one, which was imprinted on his body. Bang! He flew backward and spat out an arrow of blood in the air. He managed to stabilize his body with great difficulty, but his bright eyes became dazed. The black light on his body swayed and became scattered. Taking advantage of his weakness, Jingxue suddenly pulled his sleeve just as he was about to make a move. He turned to look at Jingxue and saw her eyes, so he stopped moving. A black light instantly condensed in Zhao Qingquan's hand, then disappeared. The next moment it appeared on Jingxun's body, which was a mile away. The black light entered his body, and Jingxun's dazed eyes regained clarity. The swaying black light around his body returned to normal, becoming darker and more profound and majestic. Chu Li's expression changed slightly. This move was amazing, and he couldn't do it. The control of inner energy had reached an unimaginable level. His body was cold, and he didn't dare to move. The petite and beautiful Abbess Xen Miao narrowed her bright eyes and said coldly, "Guardian Zhao, this isn't the Church of 9 Spectres." Zhao Qingquan smiled and said, "Abbess, I can't just watch my disciple die, can I? Does the Lotus sect want to start a war with the Church of 9 Spectres?" "He's a disciple of the Lotus sect," Abbess Xen Miao said in a low voice. Zhao Qingquan shook his head and said, "Abbess, he obviously cultivated the martial arts of the Church of 9 Spectres. How can he be a disciple of the Lotus sect? Is it a combination of the strengths of both sects?" "That's right," Abbess Xen Miao said. "He originally cultivated the martial arts of the Church of 9 Spectres, but he reincarnated in the Golden Pool, so he's an official disciple of the Lotus sect. He can't be a disciple of the Church of 9 Spectres anymore." "Ha ha!" Zhao Qingquan shook his head and laughed. "Abbess, did he cultivate the martial arts of the Church of 9 Spectres first, or the martial arts of the Lotus sect first?" Abbess Xen Miao said lightly, "The Church of 9 Spectres. Isn't that so?" Zhao Qingquan smiled and shook his head. "What else is there to say? Since he cultivated the martial arts of the Church of 9 Spectres, he's naturally a disciple of the Church of 9 Spectres. Abbess, there's nothing else to say." Xen Miao said, "All right, then he entered the Golden Pool once and erased the inheritance of the Lotus sect. He can naturally leave." Chapter 39-35. If he had not ascended from the mortal world, how could the 9 Ghost Cult send him here? Moreover, they would risk a war with the Lotus Flower School just to get a new disciple. After seeing this new disciple, Zhao Qingquan was relieved. Sure enough, he did not take such a big risk. This disciple was indeed a person with amazing talent. Moreover, he was practicing the reincarnation art. He was one of the candidates for the next leader. The 9 evil cult's secret art was not something that anyone could cultivate. The key was talent. The 9 evil cult had countless secret arts and many disciples, but only 2 or 3 people could cultivate the reincarnation art. This time they were lucky. There were already 4. With this one, there would be 5. This meant that the 9 Ghost Cult was going to prosper. Whenever there were many candidates for the next leader, the 9 Ghost Cult would prosper. This was a gift from the heavens to the 9 Ghost Cult. As the left protector of the 9 Ghost Cult, he could not allow this disciple to be harmed. He must bring him back to the cult. Otherwise, he would be the sinner of the 9 Ghost Cult. Moreover, those who could ascend were all people with extraordinary luck. Even the person who was most likely to become the next sect leader would be the person who would make the 9 Ghost Cult flourish. If he couldn't bring him back, he would be too ashamed to return to the cult. Then, are we going to let him take the Lotus Flower School's inheritance? Xen Miao snorted. This. Zhao Qingquan pondered and shook his head. Actually, the Lotus Flower School's inheritance is not that rare. We have it in our cult. What? Xen Miao frowned and said coldly, You have our Lotus secret arts. Of course. Zhao Qingquan smiled. What we lack is not the secret arts, but the people who practice them. Moreover, the Lotus secret arts are not afraid of being leaked. Without the Lotus Wheel, the virtuous Golden Lotus, the Lotus Pond, and the Golden Pond, the Lotus secret arts are just ordinary secret art. It is not much stronger than the other divine arts in our cult. What a big tone! Xian Miao snorted. Protector Zhao, even if your 9-ghost cult has our Lotus secret arts, you cannot take him away. So, we can only start a war? Zhao Qingquan said. There is another way. Xian Miao said lightly. Don't threaten us with war. Do you think our Lotus Flower School is afraid of a war with your 9-ghost cult? It's just that we're too lazy to fight among ourselves for the sake of the big picture. What else can we do? Zhao Qingquan smiled. Xian Miao said, The 9 of us will cast the celestial lotus radiance, and erase the traces of the lotus secret art. No. Zhao Qingquan's face darkened. He knew that the celestial lotus radiance art could erase the most recent memories. It was a strange art, but it could also see through other people's memories and understand the reincarnation art. However, the reincarnation art could not be leaked. Once it was seen by someone, the reincarnation technique would emit a strange power that would destroy everything about the host. This was the wondrous part of the reincarnation technique. It could not be broken, so it was impossible for the reincarnation technique to leak out. Xian Miao frowned and said, Then tell me what we should do. Abbess Xian Miao, our 9 evil cult can trade. Zhao Qingquan thought for a moment and said, Abbess, give me a price. However, Abbess should know that although the secret lotus technique is wonderful, it is nothing special. The rules of the Lotus Flower School cannot be broken. Xian Miao lightly shook her head. Traitors must be punished. If that's the case, we can't come to an agreement. Zhao Qingquan frowned. Xian Miao said, Unless he reincarnates or uses the celestial lotus radiance art, it is impossible for him to leave the Lotus Flower School. Then I can only offend you. Zhao Qingquan said. Xian Miao snorted. Guardian Zhao, I advise you to reconsider. Our Lotus Flower School is not a place you can come and go as you please. Zhao Qingquan disappeared in the next moment. Jingxue hurriedly said, Go! Chu Li activated God's limbs and disappeared on the spot. In the next moment, he appeared 30 feet away with an ugly expression. Jingxue had already fallen into Zhao Qingquan's hands. Zhao Qingquan pressed his left palm on Jingxue's right shoulder and smiled at Xian Miao, who followed closely behind. Jingxue hurriedly shook her head at Chu Li. Xian Miao frowned and said coldly with a gloomy face, Guardian Zhao, are you determined to start a war with our Lotus Flower School? Just the opposite. Zhao Qingquan said, I know this little abbess is also a powerful person with a boundless future. Is it worth it to exchange for a traitor? The Lotus Flower School's rules cannot be changed, Xian Miao said coldly. That means we have to sacrifice this little abbess? Zhao Qingquan asked. Xian Miao said, Guardian Zhao, have you forgotten? Even if she dies, she will only be reborn from the golden pool. Then don't forget, little abbess, I have cultivated the reincarnation technique, Zhao Qingquan scoffed. Xian Miao shook her head. You haven't cultivated the reincarnation technique, you can't kill her. Then let's try. Zhao Qingquan put away his smile and said in a low voice. Chu Li's mind turned quickly, thinking of a way to defeat the enemy. He could not watch Jingxue die in front of him. Moreover, looking at her face, she already had the will to die. If he did not make a move quickly, she would immediately commit suicide, and everything would be over. Jingxue must have cultivated a mystical technique, or else she would not have such keen intuition. Once she was reborn from the golden pool, this mystical technique would be washed away, which was tantamount to giving up her greatest advantage. he suddenly formed a hand seal and shouted, "Moo!" The sound was like a bronze bell, shaking the surroundings. In the void of his mind, all the Buddhas and demons formed hand seals and shouted, "Moo!" All of their spiritual energy poured out and resounded in the void. The next moment, he appeared beside Jingxue and pulled her to Xian Miao's side. Bang! There was a muffled sound in the void, then a force spread everywhere. Xian Miao had already waved her sleeve energy to block the pursuing palm energy. The turbulent force pressed down like a mountain, forcing Chu Li and Jingxue to take 4 steps back. Moreover, they were beside Xian Miao, so the palm energy was blocked. If it was not blocked, Chu Li was sure that he would have died. As expected of a guardian of the Church of 9 Spirits, the ferocity of her cultivation level and the mystical force of her palm were beyond imagination. "Alright!" Zhao Qingquan shouted and pounced at Xian Miao. Xian Miao gently waved her sleeve, and Chu Li and Jingxue took another 10 steps back. The next moment, Xian Miao and Zhao Qingquan were engaged in a battle. One of them attacked with his palm and the other waved her sleeve, but Xian Miao did not use the lotus wheel. Jingxue said, "This is the lotus sleeve." Chu Li frowned, "Why not the lotus wheel?" The lotus sleeve's lethality is not as good as the lotus wheel, but it's unpredictable and difficult to guard against. However, it's better than the lotus wheel, Jingxue said in a low voice. She was very grateful to Chu Li. She did not expect his move to be so effective that it could stun Zhao Qingquan for a moment. After all, there was a huge difference in their cultivation levels, and they had almost no chance of winning. However, Chu Li succeeded and saved her life. Chu Li's advantage was his spiritual power. At this moment, he showed his power because Zhao Qingquan was unprepared and did not expect him to succeed. If Zhao Qingquan had been on guard, things might have turned out differently. Bang, 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 bang. The muffled sounds were like thunder. Nearby, Jingzhen was once again enveloped by the golden light and struggled desperately. Zhao Qingquan shot a black light at him from time to help him, so he was not completely captured. Chu Li frowned and thought. "Senior brother Jingzhen," Jingxue nodded. "I have an idea." Chu Li looked at her in surprise. Jingxue said, "I have a trump card too." Chu Li said slowly, "Try it." Jingxue said, "I'll faint after I use it." "Leave it to me," Chu Li said. Chapter 39-36. Jingxue whispered, "Be careful of that Zhao Qingquan. He wants to kill you." Chu Li narrowed his eyes and whispered, "He wouldn't dare, right?" "Why wouldn't he?" Jingxue said, "People like them kill like chickens. Plus, the sect might not fight him to the death. Since he dares to come, he must have the confidence to escape." Chu Li said, "Let's kill Jingzhen and leave." "Very well." Jingxue nodded slowly. The next moment, her aura disappeared as if she had died and completely disappeared from the world. Chu Li, who was standing in front of her, could not even sense it. Her soul seemed to have left her body and gone to an unreachable place, leaving only a body behind. TSS. There was a soft whistle. Blood suddenly shot out of Jingzhen's mouth over 10 feet away, startling the 4 people who were holding him back in the void. While they were ruthless, they did not kill him. They still wanted to see the outcome of the negotiation between Xian Miao and Zhao Qingquan. They were only temporarily trapping the boy and taking the opportunity to give him a taste of pain so he would understand that the Lotus sect was not a pushover. Unexpectedly, Jingzhen suddenly spat out blood with pieces of flesh. His heart was clearly shattered. The next moment, Chu Li felt Jingxue return. He pulled her and disappeared, appearing in front of the valley filled with snowy silver flowers. There was a huge rock at the peak of the mountain in front of the valley. The lotus wheel broke through the air and gently swept past. The top of the rock was cut to the side, and the lower half became a smooth stone bed. He carefully put Jingxue down. Jingxue lay peacefully on her back. Her beautiful face was pale like a fragile jade artifact. It was very pitiful. Chu Li stared at her. He was secretly shocked by the previous attack. It was truly impossible to guard against. First, she hid her aura in the world, then dealt a fatal blow. It was truly a supreme assassination technique. If it were him, he would not have been able to block it. Most importantly, the power of the attack was too shocking. It not only broke through the golden light of the four people from the Lotus sect, but also Jingzhen's protective black light. It pierced through his heart without any obstruction. This time, Jingzhen could only reincarnate into the golden pool. He erased his previous life's memories and the inheritance of the Lotus sect, and forgot the two of them. Zhao Chenkuan and Xian Miao had no need to continue fighting. What was done was done. Zhao Chenkuan could only accept it. No matter how angry he was, they had already disappeared. Hee, good move. Zhao Chenkuan suddenly sneered and appeared beside Jingzhen the next moment. Xian Miao also stopped and revealed a look of admiration. She glanced around and did not see Chu Li and Jingxue. She shook her head with a smile. It seemed that these two new direct disciples did not have confidence in the Lotus Flower sect and felt that they could not protect them. Abbess, I admire you, Zhao Chenkuan said coldly. I didn't expect that this seat actually failed miserably in an easy task and was actually plotted against by two juniors. He was enraged and his eyes were filled with cold lightning. Xian Miao said indifferently, now that things have come to this, there's no point in saying anything more. They are involved in personal grudges. When he comes out of the gold pond, you can just take him back. This is already our Lotus Flower School being exceptionally lenient. If it was your 9 evil cult, it wouldn't be so easy. Then I'll have to accept your favor. Zhao Chenkuan sneered. Goodbye. You're not waiting for him to come out of the gold pond. Xian Miao glanced at Jingzhen, who was no longer breathing. He has already cultivated our 9 evil cults' divine technique. Even if he reincarnates, he will come from our abyss of 9 spirit. He won't come out of the gold pond. Zhao Chenkuan scoffed and carried Jingzhen away. Xian Miao waved her hand. Su Huan and the other 3 who were restless in the void watched as Zhao Chenkuan carried Jingzhen away. Masters Junior, Jingzhen is not dead yet. Su Huan floated down and said worriedly, what if he… It's okay. Xian Miao smiled faintly. The 9 evil cults' divine technique was not afraid of being leaked. It was the same for the Lotus Flower School. Even if they obtained the secret Lotus technique, they could not cultivate it. Moreover, without the Lotus Wheel and the various items in the Lotus Flower School, they could not cultivate the secret Lotus technique at all. They could not even enter the first level. Zhao Chenkuan appeared next to Chu Li with Jingzhen. Chu Li was watching over Jingxue. He was not in a hurry to wake her up to prevent any accident. When he saw Zhao Chenkuan carrying Jingzhen, he closed-fist saluted. Greetings, Guardian Zhao. Good. Good. Zhao Chenkuan nodded and sneered. I really underestimated you guys. You're quite a character. His gaze fell on Jingxue. Jingxue was lying quietly as if she had fallen asleep. Zhao Chenkuan was about to attack when Chu Li suddenly said, Guardian Zhao, the opponent is an expert from the deity race. If Guardian Zhao really attacks, you will definitely alarm this expert. Interesting. Zhao Chenkuan laughed and shook his head. I can't beat him, but can I run? Moreover, he's an expert to you, but not necessarily to me. Chu Li said, Guardian Zhao, this is a place even our sect doesn't dare to approach. Our martial arts are weak, so that deity realm expert can't be bothered with us. It's like he can't be bothered with 2 ants. Zhao Chenkuan narrowed his eyes. Chu Li swept a glance at Jingzhen and said calmly, Senior brother Jingzhen can still be saved, right? Once we fight with that expert and delay senior brother Jingzhen, we'll lose the bigger picture because of a small gain. That won't be a small matter, right? He and Jingxue couldn't die, but to the Lotus sect, their life and death wasn't a big deal. They could just start over and get their memories back anyway. But to Chu Li, without his previous memories, he didn't know how long it would take for him to cultivate to the 9th level of the secret Lotus technique. He couldn't wait that long, and neither could Xiao Qi and the others. Zhao Qingquan laughed coldly. Very well. The murderous intent in his heart grew stronger, but it was restrained inside. Jingxue was startled awake by this bone-piercing chill. She slowly came to and looked at Zhao Qingquan. Chu Li hurriedly asked, "Junior sister, how are you?" Jingxue shook her head lightly. "It's fine. I just need to rest for a few days." "Where is this?" Chu Li said, "That's good. This is that ravine." "This?" Jingxue sat up with difficulty. "The deity realm expert in the ravine won't come out, right? Then we won't be able to live." Chu Li laughed. "If we can drag Guardian Zhao down with us, it'll be considered a meritorious deed for the sect." Jingxue said softly, "There's no need to do this. Guardian Zhao, he won't die, right?" She shook her head and looked at Jingzhen. Zhao Qingquan stared at her coldly as if he wanted to see through her. Jingxue said, "It hasn't disappeared yet, which means he's not dead. Guardian Zhao, you're so calm and not in a hurry to save him. His heart is on the right side." Her beautiful face turned grim. His heart had been pierced through, and pieces of flesh had come out. If he was a normal person, no matter how high his cultivation level was, he would not have lasted long after his heart was shattered. He would have died a long time ago. Since Jingzhen was not dead, it was likely that his heart was not shattered. Chu Li shook his head. "Junior sister, his heart is indeed shattered." Although his intuition was not as sharp as Jingxue's, the Great Circle Mystical Void Mirror could clearly see Jingzhen's current condition. His heart was shattered, but there was a black light circulating in his heart, constantly repairing it and maintaining his vitality. The reincarnation technique that Jingzhen cultivated was unbelievably wonderful. He was still alive at this stage, and it seemed like he could recover. Jingxue frowned as she stared at Jingzhen. Chu Li said, "We've miscalculated. Let's take our leave." Chapter 39-37. Zhao Qingquan wanted to give chase as soon as he disappeared. He had a way to track Chu Li and Jingxue. Injuring someone from the Nine Ghost cult meant that he would be tracked by the cult's mysterious power, like a lamp in the dark. Humph! Suddenly, a snort exploded in his ears. A deity expert appeared in front of him, glaring at him coldly. Zhao Qingquan's expression turned gloomy. He looked down at the unconscious Jingzhen and said coldly, "Who are you?" "Xie Ming of the deity race." The deity expert said calmly, "I didn't expect to run into someone who walked right into a trap while I was guarding this place. Don't blame me then. Die." He slapped down with his palm. Surging energy appeared out of nowhere and condensed into a palm shadow that covered Zhao Qingquan. Zhao Qingquan's body suddenly burst forth with black light. Bang! He forcefully received the palm and shot out a beam of black light without waiting for Xie Ming to attack again. Xie Ming frowned and condensed his palm energy to block the black light. Chi! Xie Ming's figure froze as he looked down at his chest. He couldn't believe it. When the black light met the palm energy, it suddenly increased in speed and shot his chest in an instant. The next moment, Zhao Qingquan disappeared with Jingzhen. Xie Ming roared at the sky. His chest immediately stopped bleeding. Just as he was about to give chase, he thought of his mission and his expression sank. Then, he looked down at his bleeding wound and roared. The vertical eye between his brows opened and shot out a beam of golden light. The golden light formed a round mirror and revealed Zhao Qingquan and Jingzhen's figures. They were standing on a mountain peak. Zhao Qingquan looked exhausted as he slowly sat down on a rock. Jingzhen fell from his hand. Xie Ming laughed coldly and disappeared into the void the next moment. Chu Li and Jingxue suddenly appeared. Jingxue said, "Brother, quick!" Chu Li nodded and the two entered the valley in a flash. The snow-silver flowers bloomed everywhere in the valley. Amidst the fluttering lotus wheels, the snow-silver flowers flew into the big bags in their hands. Compared to their sleeves, their bags could hold 3 or 4 of them. The 2 lotus wheels danced as the snow-silver flowers flew into the bags like young swallows flying into the forest. In a flash, the bags were filled. Chu Li disappeared with Jingxue. In the short term, they definitely wouldn't dare to come to the valley again. Otherwise, regardless of whether or not the deity race's experts treated them as ants, they would still kill them. When Xie Ming appeared beside Zhao Qingquan, he had a cold smile on his face and was about to kill him with his palm. "Wait," Zhao Qingquan said hurriedly. Xie Ming sneered. "Do you have any last words? To be able to injure me, you have some ability." He had some admiration for Zhao Qingquan. The deity race dealing with humans was like an adult bullying a child. If it weren't for the fact that they possessed peerless secret techniques, they would have long since been wiped out by the deity race and ceased to exist in this world. Zhao Qingquan said, "Do you know what I used to hurt you?" "Speak," Xie Ming said in a deep voice. "I'll let you die a quick death." Zhao Qingquan shook his head and said, "This is our 9 ghost cult's secret technique, the 9 Nether Divine Sword. Although your deity race is strong, you can't block it." Of. Xie laughed in as he as. Zhao Qingquan said, "This is a strange technique that our cult master has recently created. It's specifically designed to restrain your deity race. Your deity race won't have such an easy time in the future. Be careful of our 9 Nether Divine Sword." 9 Nether Divine Sword. Fine, I'll have to experience it. Xie Ming gritted his teeth. It was a great humiliation to him that he had been injured by a human. Zhao Qingquan nodded. "All right, I'll give it a try." As soon as he finished speaking, a figure appeared behind him. It was an old man with a white beard and eyebrows. The old man's figure was tall and burly, like an iron tower that stood in the air. He looked down at Xie Ming with a calm expression. Zhao Qingquan heaved a sigh of relief. "Elder Son, thank you for your trouble." Elder Son didn't even look at him. "Take the people and leave first." "All right." Zhao Qingquan didn't decline. He bent down to pick up Jingxun and was about to disappear. Qi. Xie Ming's vertical eye opened and shot a beam of golden light at Zhao Qingquan. Ding! Elder Son was already in front of Zhao Qingquan. He held a strange round mirror in his hand and blocked the beam of golden light. Elder Son didn't move at all. He had already been frozen in place. The deity's eye couldn't be blocked, and neither could his round mirror. It only blocked the beam and didn't pierce through him. During this delay, Zhao Qingquan and Jingxun had already disappeared. "Ah!" Xie Ming roared and smashed Elder Son's head with one palm. Pop! Elder Son's head was smashed like a watermelon as he slowly collapsed. Xie Ming glared at his corpse with hatred. He watched helplessly as the corpse suddenly emitted a black light. It swayed like a thin veil of mist, but it suddenly condensed into a beam of black light that shot into the sky and disappeared without a trace. Xie Ming immediately knew that Elder Son hadn't truly died. He would be resurrected in the 9 Nether cult, but his cultivation would be crippled and he would need to cultivate again. Bang! Bang 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 bang! Xie Ming slammed his palm down and the surrounding boulders were smashed into pieces. Smoke and dust flew everywhere and engulfed his figure. He had already disappeared. When he appeared in the valley, his hatred hadn't dissipated yet. The next time he met Zhao Qingquan, he would definitely catch him and torture him. He definitely wouldn't let him die. His gaze suddenly swept across the valley and his face darkened. With one glance, he noticed that the snow-silver flowers had decreased. Although it was insignificant compared to the snow-silver flowers in the valley and was hard to notice, he still noticed it. It was obvious that someone had lured the tiger away from the mountain. Zhao Qingquan was the bait and then took advantage of his absence to pluck the snow-silver flowers. This Nine Nether cult was really sinister. The Nine Nether cult didn't need the snow-silver flowers, but the Lotus Flower sect desperately needed it. The Nine Nether cult must have taken the opportunity to make a deal with the Lotus Flower sect. Xieming felt aggrieved when he thought of this. Not only was he injured, Zhao Qingquan escaped and took the opportunity to steal the snow-silver flowers, helping the Nine Nether cult to increase their strength. How stupid! Zhao Qingquan! He clenched his teeth and opened his vertical eye again. Zhao Qingquan appeared at the foot of a mountain and looked up at the sky. A black cloud floated down from the sky and landed in front of him. Zhao Qingquan picked up Jingzhen and got on the black cloud. The black cloud carried him up into the sky and continued to rise until he entered the clouds. Xieming looked at this scene with a gloomy expression. Slowly, his vertical eye closed. His face was filled with anger but also a hint of helplessness. He could directly appear next to Zhao Qingquan and kill him with one palm, but he didn't dare to go over. That black cloud was too evil and gave him a strong sense of danger. If it really appeared, he might die. It was fine if he was injured, but if he really died, his cultivation would be destroyed and he would have to start all over again. That would be a real humiliation. If he endured it for now, he would eventually find a chance to take revenge. Chu Li and Jingxue appeared in their courtyard. Looking at the big bag full of snow-silver flowers, Jingxue beamed with joy. Chu Li was also happy. With these, their merits would increase further. As soon as this thought crossed his mind, the golden lotus in Chu Li's lotus pond suddenly changed. It bloomed again and then condensed into a golden lotus. He opened his mouth and the golden lotus entered. Jingxue opened her mouth as well. A golden lotus shot from the courtyard beside her and entered her mouth. The two looked at each other and smiled. Then, they began to sit cross-legged on the ground and began to channel. Chapter 39-38. Her golden lotus of virtue was formed too. After it entered her mouth, it turned into clear air and circulated in her body. Then, it circulated according to the Lotus Transformation Scripture. The aura of the Lotus Transformation Scripture grew stronger and stronger, and it slowly entered the second level. It was silent and there were no strange external signs. It happened naturally. The Lotus Transformation Scripture suddenly stopped, and the Lotus Secret Technique was activated. The Lotus Secret Technique naturally entered the seventh level, and her body flashed. Su Xian looked at her in surprise and smiled. Your luck and foundation are better than Jing Ru's. Jing Shui opened her eyes and shook her head with a frown. That shouldn't be the case. Maybe it's because he just reincarnated? Yes, it's very possible. Su Xian nodded. She did not say much. In fact, she felt that Jing Shui had a stronger foundation and was more talented. Chu Li's talent and foundation were slightly inferior. Nonetheless, in terms of conduct, although Jing Shui was intelligent and sharp, she lacked Chu Li's steadiness and thoroughness. Therefore, the two of them worked together the most. They looked at Chu Li, who had his eyes closed. Chu Li did not move, but his mind was in chaos. The lotus that was hanging in the void of his mind like a sun was suddenly covered by other lotus flowers. It completely lost its light, and it looked like there were only lotus flowers in the sky. These lotus flowers came from Mahavairokkana. Mahavairokkana lowered his eyes and formed a seal with both hands. He softly chanted Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture, and the scripture turned into lotus flowers that floated toward the Lotus Transformation Scripture. The lotus flowers formed by the Lotus Transformation Scripture were lost in the lotus flowers that covered the sky. Chu Li could clearly feel them, but he could not see them. This was the effect of his reincarnation. All the Buddhas and demons in his mind became active again. Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture also regained its power, and it began to suppress the lotus transformation scripture. Chu did not expect this to happen. He could only sigh. The Buddhas and demons in his mind became active again. Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture also regained its power, and it began to suppress the lotus transformation scripture. The lotus transformation scripture was exquisite, and it was his main cultivation method for the next stage. With it being suppressed, his path forward was shrouded in a layer of fog. The operation of the lotus secret technique was also affected and suppressed. Originally, it could have rushed to the 7th level in an instant, but now it could only be suppressed to the 6th level. It was difficult to advance further. He was not in a hurry to open his eyes. He just stared at the changes in the void of his mind, wanting to see what would happen. Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture would definitely not harm him. After a long while, all of the lotus flowers in the sky suddenly drilled into the lotus flower floating in the air. The huge lotus immediately shot out tens of thousands of rays of light, illuminating every corner of the void in his mind. It was as if the sun was shining in the sky, and nothing could hide from it. The great circle mystic void mirror also lit up, and the bodies of the Buddhas and devils became a little more solid. His body also burst forth with dazzling brilliance. Jingxue was overjoyed as she stared at Chu Li. Su Xian also looked over curiously. Chu Li's body slowly floated up, and so did the lotus seat beneath his feet. However, it was obvious that it was not supporting him. Instead, it was following him, and an invisible force was supporting his body. Chu Li closed his eyes and slowly formed a seal with his hands. His 10 fingers formed a shadow that formed a vague lotus flower. Then, the light around him suddenly drilled into his hands. Finally, a lotus flower condensed and slowly floated up. This lotus flower condensed by his hands was like a real lotus flower. It was bursting with light, and no one dared to look at it directly. It floated as if it was weightless, and it slowly arrived in front of Chu Li's forehead. It gently drilled in without any sound or hindrance. Chu Li's body flashed again, and then it was restrained. He opened his eyes, and 2 lotus flowers reflected in them. Then, he returned to his original state and smiled. "Congratulations, Jingru." Su Xian smiled in surprise. "You've actually reached the 4th level of the Great Sun Lotus Scripture." She never thought that Chu Li could advance the Great Sun Lotus Scripture to the 4th level in one go. After all, the Great Sun Lotus Scripture was much more difficult than the Secret Lotus Technique. The time it took to cultivate the Secret Lotus Technique to the 9th level was also the time it took to cultivate the Great Sun Lotus Scripture to the 4th level, but he crossed it in the blink of an eye. As far as she knew, no one in the Lotus sect was this fast. Even if they had a fortuitous encounter, they could not achieve it. Chu Li smiled. "I was just lucky." Su Xian shook her head. "There is no such thing as luck in the Great Sun Lotus Scripture. It takes a lot of effort to advance bit by bit. There are no shortcuts. Jingru, I've really underestimated you." Chu Li smiled and looked at Jingxue. Jingxue asked, "You've really reached the 4th level?" Chu Li nodded lightly. Jingxue smiled sweetly. "Then I'll have to hurry up and catch up. I can't be left behind by you, senior brother." Chu Li extended his hand. Jingxue held out her hand in confusion. The moment their hands touched, the heart technique of the Great Sun Lotus Scripture was activated. Jingxue's body burst with light. Under her astonished gaze, her sky lunar lotus scripture advanced by leaps and bounds. It leaped level by level, and in the blink of an eye, she had entered the 4th level. The moon lotus in the void of her mind emitted a warm luster that nourished her body. It was as if she was immersed in the cool moonlight. It was indescribably comfortable. Chu Li let go of her hand and smiled at her. Jingxue said in surprise, "How is this possible?" She never thought that she would advance like this, reaping without sowing. If that was the case, there would be countless masters in the Lotus Flower sect. As long as one of them could cultivate to a higher level, they could raise the level of others in the same sect. Chu Li shook his head. Not everyone can do it. Su Xian said, looks like you've already discovered this mystery. The Great Sun Lotus Scripture and the Sky Lunar Lotus Scripture are indeed one yin and one yang, complementing each other. You've been cultivating together since the beginning. Your inner energy is compatible, and your wills are compatible. That's why you're able to raise the level of the Sky Lunar Lotus Scripture for others. Jingxue nodded slowly. She experienced the mystery of the Sky Lunar Lotus Scripture, and then activated the secret lotus technique. Her body flashed, and after flashing for 15 minutes, she slowly opened her eyes. The lotus seat under her feet already had 8 levels. It was obvious that she had reached the 8th level of the secret lotus technique. Su Xian was not surprised. The Sky Lunar Lotus Scripture could be used to activate the secret lotus technique. It was indeed twice the result with half the effort. Masters Junior, who is that disciple from the Extreme Kingdom sect? Chu Li asked slowly. His face was calm, but his heart was surging with murderous intent. Xin Xing, Su Xian said, a genius of the Extreme Kingdom sect. It's just that she's always mysterious. This time, she's disguised herself, so I didn't recognize her. Chu Li turned to look at Jingxue. Jingxue said, Xin Xing of the Extreme Kingdom sect, the Xin Xing known as the Heavenly Phoenix? Yes. Su Xian smiled. Jingxue, you're really well informed. Jingxue frowned. If it's her, it won't be easy to take revenge. She's known as a genius that appears once in 100,000 years. Su Xian's face darkened and she said slowly, she lives up to her reputation. She must have cultivated the Extreme Kingdom Lifeless Divine Technique to an extremely high level to be able to imitate the Supreme Creation Divine Technique without any flaws. Moreover, she can imitate the God's eyes. Su Xian shook her head. She can be said to be the first. Chapter 39:39. The more outstanding she was, the stronger his murderous intent grew. Through the short contact, he understood that Xin Xing truly had the heart of a snake and scorpion. She treated human lives like child's play, even more so than the enlightened masters. She killed the masters of the 2 sects just to test the martial arts she created. She had no qualms about it. If she disregarded the 2 major sects like this, how could she not despise others even more? She killed whenever she wanted with no restraints in her heart. This was a dangerous mistake. He had a grudge against a woman like this. He could not let her live. It's not possible for you to kill her. Su Xian saw through the murderous intent beneath Chu Li's calm face. She sighed softly and said, let's not talk about her identity and just talk about her martial arts. Unless you've perfected your Solar Lotus Scripture and Lunar Lotus Scripture, you won't be her match. Chu Li did not speak. Jingxue said, is the Lotus sect not going to take revenge? Difficult. Su Xian said, the Lotus sect looks powerful as one of the 5 major sects in Tianan, but we cannot kill people as we please. At least, we cannot kill Xin Xing. That's impossible. Jingxue frowned. Is there any scruples or difficulties? Su Xian gently nodded. She sighed and said, Xin Xing's seniority is not high, but her status is high. If you go to deal with her or kill her, the Extreme Monarch sect will not say anything. But if our sect's top experts go to kill her, the Extreme Monarch sect will definitely send their top experts to protect her. Those with high seniority cannot bully those with low seniority. This is an unwritten rule. Otherwise, all of the junior disciples will die. Are we just going to let her be? Jingxue said. Are we not going to take revenge for senior brother Luo? No choice. Su Xian shook her head. The rules cannot be violated unless we also have a top junior master. If we kill Xin Xing, the Zenith sect cannot say anything. Then all the juniors are afraid of this Xin Xing, won't she do whatever she wants? Jing Shui frowned and said in disbelief. Su Xian nodded slowly. We can only hide from her. This. Jing Shui could not understand. Was she willing to watch the souls of the sect disciples scatter for the sake of the rules? Chu Li said, Masters Junior, why are you teasing us? He felt that as a top sect in Tiannan, they would not show such weakness. They would think of a way to control this situation. Otherwise, how could they maintain their prestige? Su Xian sighed and said, Actually, senior brother Su Yi wants to deal with her. Chu Li pondered and muttered, Could it be that they're lowering their seniority through reincarnation and then using a secret technique to increase their strength to create geniuses? Most likely. Su Xian nodded and said, There is a secret technique in the sect that can increase one's talent by burning one's lifespan. However, it requires one to reincarnate. Amazing! Chu Li and Jingxue exclaimed in admiration. Su Xian shook her head and said, The lifespan that is being burned isn't ordinary lifespan, but the innate God. After cultivating this technique, even if you reincarnate, you won't be able to change your fate of having a short lifespan. That's fine. Jingxue said, I can reincarnate when my lifespan is up. Although the golden pond is wondrous, it cannot be created from nothing. Su Xian sighed. After this experience, Chu Li's mind was unusually agile and far more agile than before. His reaction was sharp and he immediately figured out the essence of the matter. He slowly said, You can't create something out of nothing. In other words, the golden pond can't extend a person's life and can only reincarnate and be reborn? No matter how many times you reincarnate, your lifespan will still be the same as before. Yes. Su Xian slowly nodded. I thought with the help of the golden pond, one can live forever, Jingxue said. Su Xian smiled and said, Since ancient times, has there ever been a person who lived forever? Unless they cultivate to the extreme and ascend, their lifespan will return to zero and they will be completely reborn. Jingxue nodded and said, Can we cultivate that secret technique too? Su Xian said, Don't cultivate it unless you have no other choice. It's like taking chestnuts out of the fire. Jingxue frowned and said nothing. Su Xian saw that she was tempted and shook her head. It might not be useful even if you cultivate it. Senior brother Suyi has already cultivated it twice, but his soul still dissipated in the end. She sighed softly and looked at the sky with a melancholic expression. She thought of senior brother Suyi's voice and smile. It was as if he was right in front of her, making her even more melancholic. Chu Li said, There will be a way. Masters Junior, please continue with your work. Su Xian looked deeply at Jingxue. Cultivating the heavenly lunar lotus scripture is the most important thing. Don't let your imagination run wild. Yes, Jingxue replied with a fist salute. Su Xian did not know if Jingxue had listened to her. Smart people were often stubborn and would not listen to others. There was no point in saying more, so she fluttered away. Chu Li stood in front of the snowy silver tree with his hands behind his back and activated the life and death scripture again. This time, the life and death scripture flashed in the void of his mind. Surging vitality seeped into the snowy silver tree. With the support of the Yuan formation, it was full of vitality, and the snowy silver tree grew rapidly. Junior sister, I want to go to the sutra library, Chu Li said. Jingxue nodded. Let's go together. The two fluttered out of the courtyard and went up the mountain. It became steeper and steeper. They passed through thick fog and thick clouds to arrive in front of a majestic stone hall. The hall was about 500 square feet wide but 1,000 feet tall. The top could not be seen when they looked up as it was covered by clouds. One could only see it clearly with the great circle mystical sky mirror. When the two fluttered into the hall, there were already more than 100 people in the hall. No one spoke and everyone was reading in silence. Every floor required sufficient cultivation to enter. Chuli could only see the bottom 3 floors back then. Now, he kept going up until he reached the 20th floor. He could not go any further. Jingxue calmly went up to the 20th floor. Senior brother, I saw the 10th floor. I can see from the 11th floor. What about you? Jingxue asked. Chuli said, from the 4th floor onward, we'll see on our own. Jingxue nodded and fluttered down to the 11th floor. Chuli went to the 4th floor. Chuli shook his head. It was no wonder Jingxue knew so much. She could see more as she climbed higher. The sutra library did not limit one's cultivation level to inner energy, but one's spirit. Back when he was bound by this realm, he could only use 40 to 50% of his spirit. Now, he had completely recovered. With the support of the divine Sun Lotus scripture, his spirit had increased. Jingxue was clearly like him. Her spirit was blessed by nature. It was obvious that she had other fortuitous encounters and secret skills other than the Empyrean fairy scripture. He cleared his mind of distracting thoughts and entered the 4th floor. Inside the hall, there were rows of tall bookshelves. The books on the shelves were so dense that it was intimidating. There were people quietly reading under the rows of bookshelves. There was only the sound of books flipping in the entire hall. It was especially quiet. It was as if one's breathing had to be light. Chuli stood in the hall. He closed his eyes and did not move. The great circle dark void mirror and stargazing technique were circulating continuously. He wanted to find the book that would be most helpful to him instead of flipping through the books one by one. He decided to read all the books here. However, he had to find the most important book first. He would slowly flip through the rest. He would come back when he had time. If not, he would wait. The people around him noticed something strange. They glanced at him before lowering their heads to continue reading. They were immersed in the world of books again. After 10 minutes, Chuli suddenly opened his eyes. He strode to the bookshelf in the northwest corner. He closed his eyes and touched the bookshelf. Finally, he stopped in the middle of the bottom row. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.